can't go, the millionaire whispered, blood pooling beneath her designer heels on the rain-soaked pavement. If I don't make that meeting in 2 hours, 3,000 people lose everything. Ryan Cole, a struggling single-dad mechanic with $37 in his bank account, stared at the woman dying outside his garage. He had exactly 1 hour before he was supposed to pick up his daughter from school. A promise he'd broken too many times already, but something in Vanessa Reed's desperate eyes told him that this moment would change everything. Stay with me until the very end of this story. Hit that like button and comment with your city so I can see how far this story travels. The morning had started like every other Wednesday in Ryan Cole's life, which is to say, it had started badly. The coffee maker had died with a pathetic gurgle at 5:47 a.m., right after Ryan had poured the last of the ground beans into the filter. He'd stood there in his cramped kitchen, watching the machine sputter its final breath like a patient giving up on life. And he'd actually laughed. Not because anything was funny, but because what else could you do when the universe kept taking swings at you? "Daddy?" Mia's voice had drifted from her bedroom, small and sleepy. "Is it morning?" "Not yet, sweetheart," Ryan had called back, though golden light was already creeping through the thin curtains of their apartment above the garage. "Sleep a little longer." He tiptoed to her doorway and watched her for a moment, 7 years old, with her mother's dark curls spread across the pillow and that same stubborn set to her jaw even in sleep. Sarah had been gone 3 years now, taken by a drunk driver on a Tuesday afternoon, and sometimes Ryan still reached for her side of the bed in the dark, still expected to hear her laugh from the next room. The grief never really left. It just learned to wait in corners. By 6:15 a.m., Ryan was down in Cole's Auto Repair, his small garage that sat on the forgotten edge of downtown, where the city's Polish wore thin and real people did real work. The building had been his father's and his grandfather's before that. 3 generations of Cole men who'd understood that a car wasn't just metal and mechanics, but a lifeline. A way to get to work, to take kids to school, to rush someone to the hospital when seconds mattered. The problem was, lifelines didn't pay well anymore. Ryan had 3 cars in various states of repair. Mrs. Chen's ancient Honda that needed a new transmission she couldn't afford, the Martinez family's minivan with a timing belt that should have been replaced 2 years ago, and a rusted pickup truck that belonged to a kid barely out of high school who'd paid Ryan in crumpled bills and said he needed it running by Friday for a job interview. Ryan would fix them all. He'd charge them less than he should, take payments over time, and sometimes forget to collect it all. It was terrible business. His accountant, back when he could afford an accountant, had told him so. But it was the right thing to do. "You can't save everyone, son," his father had told him once, years ago, when Ryan was young and angry at all the unfairness in the world. But that doesn't mean you stop trying to save the ones you can. The rain started at 7:23 a.m., not the gentle kind that whispered promises of spring, but the aggressive autumn rain that came down like judgment. It hammered against the garage's metal roof, turning the world outside into a gray blur. Ryan was under Mrs. Chen's Honda, wrestling with a stubborn bolt, when his phone buzzed. Reminder: Parent-teacher conference, 3:00 p.m. Miss Patterson wants to discuss Mia's progress. Ryan's stomach dropped. He'd forgotten. Again. He rolled out from under the car, wiping grease from his hands, and checked his schedule. Mr. Harrison needed his Buick by 2:00 p.m., had called twice already asking if it was ready. Ryan was still waiting on a part that should have arrived yesterday. Mrs. Chen needed her car by 5:00 p.m. to get to her night shift at the hospital. The timing belt on the minivan was fighting him like it had a personal grudge. He could make the conference if everything went perfectly. And in Ryan Cole's life, nothing ever went perfectly. "I'll make it work," he muttered to the empty garage. "I'll make it work." At 11:47 a.m., his daughter's school called. "Mr. Cole?" The secretary's voice was professional but pointed. "This is Ridgemont Elementary. I'm calling to confirm your attendance at this afternoon's conference. Miss Patterson has set aside time specifically to—" "I'll be there," Ryan interrupted, perhaps more sharply than he'd intended. "I promised Mia I'd be there, and I will be." A pause. "Of course, Mr. Cole. We'll see you at 3. The unspoken words hung in the air after she'd disconnected. You've said that before. Ryan threw himself into the work, moving faster, cutting corners he'd normally never cut. The Buick's problem turned out to be simpler than he'd thought, a blessing that felt rare enough to be suspicious. He had it running by 1:30 p.m. and called Mr. Harrison, who arrived 20 minutes later with a check and a handshake. You're a miracle worker, Ryan, the older man said, and Ryan smiled because people always said that, never realizing that miracles were just the product of staying up until 2 a.m. with a broken lamp and sheer stubbornness. By 2:15 p.m., Ryan was making actual progress on the timing belt. He might finish with time to spare, might actually shower and change into clean clothes, might show up to Mia's school looking like a father who had his life together. That's when he heard the scream. It cut through the sound of the rain and the radio playing classic rock in the corner, a sharp, desperate sound that shot straight through Ryan's chest and pulled him toward the garage door before his brain could catch up. He'd heard screams before. You grew up in this neighborhood. You learned the difference between surprise and pain, between anger and genuine terror. This was terror with something else underneath it, desperation so profound it made the sound jagged. Ryan hit the door at a run, not bothering with a jacket, and the rain slammed into him like a wall. It took him 3 seconds to see her. She was on the ground beside a car that probably cost more than Ryan's entire building, sleek, black, the kind of machine that whispered money so old it had forgotten where it came from. The woman wore clothes that probably had names Ryan wouldn't recognize, the kind of carefully constructed elegance that cost a fortune to look effortless. And she was bleeding. Help! She gasped, one hand pressed to her side, the other reaching toward Ryan with fingers that trembled. Please, I can't go. I have to. Ryan was already moving, his boots splashing through puddles as he dropped to his knees beside her. Years of working with his hands kicked in. Assess the damage, find the problem, fix what you can. Where are you hurt? His voice came out calmer than he felt, the same tone he used with Mia when she'd had nightmares. Steady, present. Talk to me. My side, right side. It hurts. She gasped as he gently moved her hand and he saw the blood seeping through her ivory blouse. Not a wound from outside. Something internal. I can't miss my meeting. 2 o'clock. I have to. 30 minutes, please. Ma'am, you need a hospital. Ryan was already pulling out his phone, fingers slipping on the wet screen. I'm calling 911. No! Her hand shot out and grabbed his wrist with surprising strength. Her eyes, dark brown, clouded with pain, locked onto his with an intensity that made him freeze. No ambulance, traffic, rush hour. I'll never make it. My car, drive my car. Faster, please. You need an ambulance, Ryan said firmly, but she was shaking her head, struggling to sit up. You don't understand. Vanessa Reed, Tech Summit, 2 p.m., 3,000 employees. If I don't make that meeting, if I don't stop them. She broke off with a sharp intake of breath, her face going pale. Everything I've built, everything they've worked for, gone. Vanessa Reed. Even Ryan, who barely followed business news, recognized that name. Founder of some tech company that had been all over the news for the past year. Something about AI and healthcare and revolutionary changes. He'd seen her face on the cover of a magazine in the dentist's office, looking confident and untouchable. She looked very touchable now, very human, very much like she was dying. Ma'am, Vanessa, listen to me. Ryan kept his voice level even as his mind raced through options, through possibilities, through the clock ticking toward 2:00 p.m. and 3:00 p.m. and all the promises he'd made. That pain in your side, the way you're bleeding, that could be your appendix, could be internal bleeding. You don't make it to a meeting if you're dead. Then you go. She grabbed his shirt now, pulling him closer, her breath coming in short gasps. You go for me. You tell them postpone. 24 hours. That's all I need. Please, please, I'm begging you. This isn't about money. It's about people. Real people with families. And her words cut off as a wave of pain visibly crashed through her. Her eyes rolled back and Ryan caught her before she could fall. Okay, he heard himself say. Okay, here's what we're going to do. I'm taking you to St. Catherine's. It's 10 minutes from here. Fastest route. And then we'll figure out your meeting. My phone. She fumbled in her pocket, pulled out a device that probably cost more than Ryan's truck. Password 7431. My assistant. Marcus. Call Marcus. Tell him. I'll call him from the hospital, Ryan said, already scooping her up. She weighed almost nothing, this woman who apparently controlled the fate of thousands. Right now you need to stay conscious. Talk to me. Tell me about this meeting. He carried her toward his truck, not her sleek machine that he'd probably wreck in 10 seconds, but his faithful Ford that knew every shortcut in the city. The rain was relentless, soaking through his shirt, plastering his hair to his forehead, but he moved carefully, keeping her stable. Hostile takeover, Vanessa gasped as he settled her into the passenger seat. Board meeting. Today. Vote. If I'm not there to present the counterproposal, they'll sell. Asset stripping. Fire everyone. Gut the company for parts. Ryan ran around to the driver's side, his mind only half processing her words. The other half was doing calculations. 10 minutes to the hospital, maybe 15 with traffic. Then what? Miss the parent-teacher conference? Disappoint Mia again? But if he didn't help this woman... He started the engine. What's your daughter's name? Vanessa asked suddenly, her voice weak but determined. Ryan's hands froze on the wheel. What? Your keychain. Photo, little girl, 7, 8? What's her name? He glanced down. The worn keychain with Mia's school picture from last year, her gap-toothed smile bright enough to light up the darkness. Mia, her name's Mia. You have somewhere to be. It wasn't a question. Vanessa's eyes, despite the pain, were sharp, reading him. 3 o'clock, school thing. And you're thinking about all the times you've been late, all the promises you've broken, all the ways you're failing her. Ryan's throat tightened. I have a daughter too, Vanessa whispered. Sophia, 16, boarding school in Connecticut. Haven't seen her in 6 weeks because I've been fighting this takeover. Keep telling myself it's for her future, for her security. But really? A bitter laugh. Really, I'm just doing what I've always done. Putting the company first, putting everything first except the people who actually matter. Ryan pulled onto the street, windshield wipers fighting a losing battle against the rain. You're not dying on me. You hear me? We're going to get you fixed up, and you're going to see your daughter. And you're going to make your conference. Vanessa's head lolled against the seat. Promise me, after you drop me off, you go to your daughter's school, you don't wait, you don't stay, you go. Let's get through the next 10 minutes first. Mr. Cole. She said his name like she'd known him for years, like she could see straight through him. You stopped when no one else would. In this city, in this life, people in suits like me, we walk past people every day. We don't stop. We don't see. But you stopped. Why? Ryan navigated through an intersection, the hospital's tall building visible in the distance. Because somebody needed help. Most people would have called 911 and gone back inside. Most people aren't my father's son. He said it without thinking, and Vanessa made a sound that might have been a laugh, or might have been a sob. Your father taught you to stop. Mine taught me never to show weakness, to win at any cost, to never, ever let them see you bleed. How's that working out for you? This time it was definitely a laugh, sharp and painful. Not great if I'm being honest. St. Catherine's emergency entrance appeared through the rain like a beacon. Ryan pulled up to the door, ignoring the no parking signs, and was out of the truck before the engine fully stopped. A nurse was at the entrance, smoking a cigarette under the overhang, and her eyes went wide as Ryan came around to the passenger side. Need a gurney, he shouted. Internal bleeding, right side, possible appendix. The nurse dropped her cigarette and disappeared inside. Ryan pulled Vanessa out carefully, and she groaned but stayed conscious, her hand still clutching her phone. Marcus? She whispered. Call Marcus. Tell him Ryan Cole is coming to the meeting for me. Ma'am, I'm a mechanic. I can't. You can. Her grip on his arm was surprisingly strong. You will, because 3,000 people are counting on someone showing up. And right now? Her eyes met his, lucid despite the pain. Right now, you're the only someone there is. The gurney arrived with 2 orderlies and a doctor already firing questions. Ryan gave them what information he had as they transferred Vanessa to the stretcher. Her hand reached for his one more time. The meeting is at Reed Technologies, downtown. Everyone knows the building, 47th floor, conference room Omega. Tell them I sent you. Tell them I need 24 hours. I don't know anything about your business, Ryan protested, but the gurney was already moving, already disappearing through the automatic doors into the bright fluorescent interior of the ER. The nurse who'd called for help reappeared. Are you family? No, I found her, outside my garage. She collapsed. You saved her life, the nurse said simply. Another 30 minutes, maybe an hour, and we'd be having a different conversation. Ruptured appendix by the look of it. You did good. Ryan stood in the rain, water streaming down his face, Vanessa's phone heavy in his hand. The time on the screen read 2:47 p.m., 13 minutes until Mia's conference, 23 minutes since Vanessa was supposed to be at the most important meeting of her life. His truck sat at the curb, engine running, waiting for him to make a choice. Ryan looked at the phone. 7431. He entered the password, and the device came to life with notifications that made his head spin. Dozens of messages, missed calls, calendar alerts, all screaming about the same thing. Board meeting, 2:20 p.m. Urgent. He found the contact labeled Marcus Chen, assistant, and pressed call before he could talk himself out of it. 2 rings. Vanessa, thank heavens! Where are you? The board is losing their minds. Peterson just arrived with his entire legal team. This isn't Vanessa, Ryan interrupted. My name is Ryan Cole. I'm at St. Catherine's Hospital. Vanessa collapsed outside my garage about 40 minutes ago. Ruptured appendix. She's in surgery now. Silence. Then, is she going to be okay? Doctor said I got her here just in time. But she's not making any meeting today. She told me to call you, said something about a hostile takeover and 3,000 people, and Ryan stopped, suddenly aware of how insane this all sounded. Look, I don't know what's going on, but she was pretty desperate about this meeting. Desperate doesn't begin to cover it. Marcus's voice was tight with stress. Our biggest competitor is trying to buy us out. They have enough board votes to force it through. Vanessa was supposed to present an alternative plan, a partnership that would save the company and keep everyone employed. If she doesn't show, she sent me. The words came out before Ryan could stop them. She told me to go to the meeting for her, to ask for a postponement, 24 hours. Another silence, longer this time. You're joking. Do I sound like I'm joking? Mr. Cole, no offense, but what did you say you do? I'm a mechanic. I fix cars. Right. And you're going to walk into a boardroom full of cutthroat executives and multimillionaire investors and ask them to postpone a vote that's already 3 months in the making. Marcus laughed, but it was the laugh of a man who'd run out of options. You know what? Why not? At this point, what's the worst that could happen? The meeting's at Reed Tech, 47th floor, conference room Omega. Security will stop you at the lobby. Show them Vanessa's phone. Tell them she sent you. I'll call ahead, try to smooth the way. But Mr. Cole? Yeah? They're going to eat you alive. Ryan looked down at his reflection in a puddle. Grease-stained jeans, work boots with holes in the soles, a t-shirt advertising a brand of motor oil. He looked like exactly what he was, a struggling mechanic from the wrong side of town who had no business anywhere near a corporate boardroom. He thought about Mia, waiting at school, about Miss Patterson, checking her watch, making notes in Mia's file about the father who never showed up, about all the times he'd promised to be better and failed. But he also thought about Vanessa's eyes, about the desperation in her voice when she talked about 3,000 people losing everything, about his father's voice saying that you couldn't save everyone, but that didn't mean you stopped trying. Tell them I'm on my way, Ryan said. He checked the time again, 2:51 p.m. And Marcus, I need you to do me a favor. Call Ridgemont Elementary. Ask for Miss Patterson. Tell her that Ryan Cole won't be making the parent-teacher conference today because he's trying to help save 3,000 jobs. Tell her, his voice cracked slightly, tell her I'm sorry. And tell her to tell Mia that Daddy's keeping a different kind of promise today. He hung up before Marcus could respond, before he could think about what he was doing, before common sense could override the bone-deep certainty that this was somehow the right choice, even if it was the wrong one. Reed Technologies was 17 minutes across town, through traffic that would be terrible, to a building he'd driven past 1,000 times but never imagined entering. Ryan climbed back into his truck, put it in gear, and pointed it toward downtown, toward impossibility, toward a boardroom full of sharks who would indeed eat him alive. But before he did, he sent one text message to the school, directly to Miss Patterson's number that she'd given him for emergencies. Emergency came up. Can't make conference. Please tell Mia that I love her and I'm sorry. We'll explain everything tonight. This is important. I promise. Ryan. He put the phone down and drove through the rain, leaving his own life behind to step into someone else's, and somehow, impossibly, it felt like the first right thing he'd done in a very long time. The city blurred past his windows, familiar streets turned strange by rain and circumstance. Ryan had lived here his whole life, had learned to drive on these roads, had buried his wife in a cemetery just off exit 12. He knew every shortcut, every timing of every light, every trick to shave off precious seconds. He needed every one of them now. At a stoplight, his phone buzzed. A text from a number he didn't recognize. This is Marcus. Security is expecting you. Elevator code for 47th floor is 4731. Same as her phone. Vanessa never forgot a number that mattered. Good luck. You're going to need it. Another text followed immediately. Also, wear this metaphorically, if not literally. You're the guy who saved her life. Remember that. You're not asking for a favor. You're telling them what's going to happen. Confidence. They can smell weakness. Ryan stared at the message. Confidence. He was a mechanic with $37 in his bank account and a daughter who was learning that promises from her father were just pretty words that dissolved in daylight. The light turned green, and he drove. Reed Technologies rose from downtown like a glass monument to success, 49 stories of reflective windows that made the building seem to disappear into the sky itself. Ryan had seen it 1,000 times, had barely given it a thought beyond, must be nice to work in a place like that. He pulled his truck into the parking garage, ignoring the attendant's raised eyebrows at the battered vehicle among the Mercedes and Teslas. The parking fee alone, $30 for the day, made his stomach clench, but he paid it with cash he'd meant to use for groceries. The lobby was all marble and chrome and quiet elegance that whispered money in every surface. Ryan's boots squeaked on the polished floor, leaving small wet prints that he tried not to notice. People in expensive suits moved past him with the purposeful stride of those who belonged, who'd never questioned their right to be in spaces like this. Can I help you, sir? The security guard at the desk was polite but firm, his eyes taking in Ryan's appearance with the practiced assessment of someone trained to spot problems. Ryan held up Vanessa's phone. Ryan Cole. I'm here for the Reed Technologies board meeting. Vanessa Reed sent me. The guard's eyebrows rose, and he checked his computer, picked up a phone, had a quiet conversation, put it down and looked at Ryan with something like curiosity. Mr. Chen called ahead. You're cleared for the 47th floor. Elevators on your right. You'll need this code 4731, Ryan said. I know. Of course you do. The guard handed him a visitor's badge. Good luck up there, Mr. Cole. I get the feeling you're going to need it. The elevator was glass-walled, offering views of the city as it climbed. Ryan watched the ground fall away, watched the rain-soaked streets become miniature below him, and felt profoundly out of place. What was he doing? He fixed cars. He knew timing belts and transmission fluid, and how to keep a 20-year-old vehicle running with duct tape and prayer. He didn't know hostile takeovers or board votes, or how to talk to people who made more in a day than he made in a year. The elevator dinged softly at the 47th floor, and the doors opened onto a reception area that looked like it belonged in an art museum. A young woman at the desk, Marcus presumably, practically jumped to his feet. Mr. Cole? He was in his late 20s, impeccably dressed, and currently looking at Ryan like he was a puzzle that didn't quite fit together. I'm Marcus Chen. Thank you for coming. I wasn't sure you would. Promised her I would, Ryan said simply. How is she? Have you heard anything? Surgery started 20 minutes ago. They'll call when she's out of recovery. Marcus was already moving, gesturing for Ryan to follow. The meeting started at 2. It's been contentious. Peterson, he's the CEO of Meddyne, the company trying to buy us. He's been pushing hard for an immediate vote. Some of our board members are pushing back, asking where Vanessa is, but Peterson's arguing that her absence proves she doesn't have a viable counterproposal. They were walking down a hallway now, and through glass walls Ryan could see conference rooms, offices, people working at computers, living lives he couldn't imagine. What am I supposed to say? I don't know anything about your business. Marcus stopped outside a large wooden door, and through the frosted glass Ryan could see shapes moving inside. A lot of shapes. You tell them the truth. Vanessa Reed nearly died getting here today because she believed this company was worth saving. You tell them she needs 24 hours to present her plan. And you tell them, Marcus met Ryan's eyes directly, you tell them that the man who saved her life is asking them for basic human decency. Can they manage that much? That's not asking. That's guilt-tripping. Welcome to corporate America, Mr. Cole. We use what works. Marcus pushed open the door. Good luck. The conference room was enormous, with windows overlooking the rain-soaked city and a table that could have seated 30 people. Right now it held about 15, men and women in suits that cost more than Ryan's truck, looking up as he entered with expressions ranging from confusion to barely concealed hostility. At the head of the table sat a man in his early 60s with silver hair and a smile that didn't reach his eyes. I'm sorry, I think you have the wrong room. This is a closed board meeting. Ryan's hands wanted to shake, but he remembered his father's advice. When you don't know what to say the truth, simple and clear. My name is Ryan Cole. Vanessa Reed asked me to be here. The room exploded in murmurs. A woman with sharp features and sharper eyes leaned forward. That's absurd. Where's Vanessa? This is completely unacceptable. She's in surgery, Ryan said, and the room went quiet. St. Catherine's Hospital, ruptured appendix. She collapsed outside my auto shop about an hour and a half ago. I got her to the hospital just in time. He looked around the room at all these powerful people who controlled things he'd never understand. She asked me to give you a message. The silver-haired man, Peterson, Ryan guessed, stood up. This is highly irregular. We have a vote scheduled. She's asking for 24 hours, Ryan continued, ignoring him. 24 hours to present her counterproposal once she's out of recovery. That's all. 1 day. 1 day? Peterson laughed, but it was cold. Mr. Cole, is it? Do you have any idea how long this acquisition has been in the works? The due diligence alone took 6 months. We have contracts drawn up, financing in place, regulatory approval pending. We're not going to delay a multi-billion-dollar deal because Ms. Reed had a medical emergency. 3,000 people, Ryan said quietly. That's what she told me. 3,000 people work here. 3,000 people with families and rent payments and kids in school. And you're telling me you can't wait 1 day to make sure they don't lose everything? A younger woman near the middle of the table spoke up. He's right. 24 hours won't hurt anything. Rebecca, Peterson said, his voice taking on an edge. We've been over this. The price we're offering is generous, better than fair market value. Anyone who says otherwise is letting emotion cloud their judgment. Or maybe, Ryan heard himself say, maybe there's a difference between price and value. Every eye in the room turned to him. Peterson's expression hardened. I'm sorry, what? Ryan felt his heart hammering, felt sweat on his palms despite the room's perfect temperature control. But he thought about Mrs. Chen's Honda, about how she'd cried when he told her he'd do the transmission work for half price, about the Martinez family who brought him tamales at Christmas because they couldn't afford to pay him any other way. I'm a mechanic, he said. I fix cars. And everyday people come to me with machines that other shops have declared worthless. Too old, they say. Not worth fixing. Buy a new one. But to the person who owns that car, it's not about the price some expert assigns to it. It's about the value, the memories in that car, the life it represents, the fact that they can't afford the new one those experts think they should just go buy. He gestured around the room. You're all talking about this company like it's just numbers on a spreadsheet, but Vanessa Reed was willing to die rather than miss this meeting. That tells me this place has value beyond whatever price you're offering. Maybe you should wait 1 day to find out what that value is. The room was silent. Peterson's face had gone red, but before he could respond, an older man at the far end of the table spoke up. "Young man, that's a lovely speech, but this is business. Vanessa's dedication is admirable, but it doesn't change the financial realities. Meddyne's offer ensures the company survives. If we wait, if we bet everything on Vanessa's plan and it fails, we could lose everything." "So you'd rather take the sure loss than risk the fight?" Ryan shook his head. "That's not survival. That's surrender." "You don't understand what's at stake," Peterson began. "No," Ryan interrupted, surprising himself. I don't understand billion-dollar deals or market analyses or whatever the hell due diligence means. But I understand people. I understand that woman in the hospital right now cared enough to send a complete stranger to fight for her. And I'm asking you." He looked at each face around the table. "I'm asking you to wait one day, 24 hours. If her plan is terrible, vote it down tomorrow, but at least let her make her case." Rebecca, the younger woman who'd spoken earlier, stood up. "I motion to postpone the vote for 24 hours. "Seconded," said another voice, an older man with kind eyes. Peterson's jaw clenched. "This is a waste of time. Helen, surely you can see—" But Helen, the sharp-featured woman, was looking at Ryan with something like curiosity. "Actually, William, I think Mr. Cole has a point. One day won't hurt. And if Vanessa was willing to send a mechanic, no offense, Mr. Cole, to fight her battles, I'd like to hear what she has to say when she can speak for herself." "I didn't come here to fight her battles," Ryan said quietly. "I came here because she asked me to, because someone needed help, and I was there. Same reason I'd stop for any stranger on the street. Your call, whether that means something or not." The vote came swiftly after that. 9 in favor of postponement, 5 against, 1 abstention. Peterson's face was stone as he gathered his papers. 24 hours. No more extensions. If Vanessa isn't here with a viable plan tomorrow at 2 p.m., we proceed with the original vote. "She'll be here," Ryan said, hoping it was true, hoping surgery went well, hoping this wasn't all for nothing. As the board members filed out, Rebecca approached him. "That was either very brave or very stupid, Mr. Cole." "Probably stupid," Ryan admitted, "but sometimes that's the only option left." She smiled. "Vanessa is lucky you were there. Not many people would have stopped. Fewer still would have come here." She handed him a business card. "When this is over, give me a call. I think we could use someone with your perspective on our board." Ryan took the card more out of politeness than any real intention to use it. A moment later, he was alone in the conference room. Rain still streaming down the windows, his phone showing 3:47 p.m. 47 minutes late to Mia's conference. 47 minutes added to every other time he'd been late, every promise he'd broken, every moment he'd chosen something else over her. His phone buzzed. A text from Marcus. "Surgery successful. She's in recovery. Asking for you." Ryan rode the elevator back down, retrieved his truck from the parking garage, and drove to the hospital through rush-hour traffic that seemed deliberately determined to slow him down. By the time he reached St. Catherine's, visiting hours were nearly over. The nurse at the desk remembered him. "Your friend is awake, room 427, but only 5 minutes. She needs rest." Vanessa looked impossibly small in the hospital bed, surrounded by machines that beeped softly, an IV running into her arm. But her eyes were clear when she saw him, and she smiled. "You went," she said. "Marcus told me. Said you walked in there looking like—" what were his words? "Like a working-class superhero." Ryan snorted. "I looked like a mechanic who had no business being there. But yeah, I went, got you your 24 hours. Now you just have to have a plan good enough to use them." "Oh, I have a plan," Vanessa said. "Had it all along. The board just needed to see that I was willing to fight for it. And you showed them that." She reached for his hand. "Your daughter. Did you make your conference?" Ryan's throat tightened. "No, I didn't." "I'm sorry." "Don't be. I made a choice. Now I have to live with it." He stood to leave. "You get some rest. Tomorrow's your big day." "Ryan." She waited until he looked back. "That offer I made earlier, about investing in your garage, I meant it. When this is over, when the dust settles, I want to help. Not charity. Partnership. You saved my life. Let me help save your business. We'll see, Ryan said, because hope was a dangerous thing when you'd been disappointed enough times. First, let's see if you can save your own company. He left her there, drove home through darkness and rain, and arrived at his apartment at 6:23 p.m. Mia was with Mrs. Chen from downstairs, who gave him a look that said everything about what she thought of fathers who missed school conferences. "Daddy!" Mia ran to him, throwing her arms around his waist. "Mrs. Chen said you had an emergency. Was it bad?" Ryan knelt down, looking into his daughter's eyes, Sarah's eyes, full of trust he didn't deserve. "A woman collapsed outside the garage. I had to take her to the hospital. I'm sorry I missed your conference, sweetheart. I'm so sorry. Did you save her?" Yeah, I think maybe I did." Mia considered this seriously. Then it was the right thing. Miss Patterson said so. She said sometimes grown-ups have to make hard choices, and if you saved someone's life, that's a pretty good reason to miss a meeting. Ryan pulled her close, blinking against sudden tears. "When did you get so wise?" "I'm 7.5, Mia said, like that explained everything. "Mrs. Chen made spaghetti. Are you hungry?" Later, after Mia was asleep and the apartment was quiet except for the rain, Ryan sat at his kitchen table with a cup of bad instant coffee and tried to process everything that had happened. One day. He'd lived an entire lifetime in one day. His phone buzzed with a text from a number he didn't recognize. "This is Rebecca Chen from the board. I wanted you to know you changed minds today, not just about the vote, about what matters." "Thank you." Another text, this one from Marcus. "Vanessa's doing well. Doctors say she'll be able to attend tomorrow's meeting if she takes it easy. She's reviewing her presentation now from her hospital bed because of course she is. You gave her the chance she needed. Whatever happens tomorrow, that matters." Ryan put the phone down and stared out at the rain-soaked city, at all the lights and all the windows representing lives he'd never know, struggles he'd never understand. Somewhere out there, 3,000 people were sleeping peacefully, unaware that their jobs had been hanging by a thread, unaware that a mechanic from the wrong side of town had bought them one more day. One more day to hope. One more day to fight. One more day to prove that some things were worth more than the price tag experts assigned to them. He thought about his father's words, about not being able to save everyone but trying anyway. He thought about Vanessa's desperate eyes and the way she'd trusted a complete stranger because he'd been there when she needed someone. He thought about Mia's gap-toothed smile and the way she'd said, sometimes grown-ups have to make hard choices. Tomorrow would bring new problems. The parent-teacher conference he'd missed would need to be rescheduled. Mrs. Chen still needed her Honda. The bills that were overdue would still be overdue. His bank account would still have $37, minus $30 for parking. But tonight, just for tonight, Ryan Cole allowed himself to believe that maybe he'd done something that mattered. That maybe stopping to help a stranger wasn't the stupid choice, wasn't the irresponsible choice, wasn't another in a long line of failures. Maybe it was just the right thing. And maybe, just maybe, that was enough. Ryan woke at 5:15 a.m. to the sound of his phone ringing. Not the gentle alarm he'd set, but an actual call that cut through the darkness like a knife. His hand fumbled across the nightstand, knocking over the empty coffee cup from the night before, and he answered without checking the caller ID. "Mr. Cole?" Marcus Chen's voice was tight with controlled panic. "I'm sorry to call so early, but we have a situation." Ryan sat up, instantly awake despite having slept maybe 4 hours. "What kind of situation?" "Vanessa discharged herself from the hospital 3 hours ago, against medical advice. She's at her office right now, running on painkillers and sheer stubbornness, trying to finalize her presentation. But that's not the problem." Marcus paused. "Peterson leaked the story to the press. It's all over the business news. Tech CEO hospitalized hours before critical vote, Reed Technologies in chaos, that kind of thing. He's spinning it as proof that Vanessa's too unstable to run the company. The board members are getting nervous. Some of them are reconsidering their vote for the postponement." Ryan rubbed his eyes, trying to process this. "What does she need from me?" "She wants you at the meeting today. Says you changed the dynamic yesterday, made them see things differently. She thinks having you there again might help." "I'm a mechanic, Marcus. I gave them one speech and barely pulled that off. What am I supposed to do in an actual business meeting?" "Be yourself." Marcus's voice softened slightly. Look, I've worked for Vanessa for 4 years. I've seen her handle hostile investors, navigate regulatory nightmares, stare down competitors who wanted to bury her. But yesterday, when she woke up in recovery and I told her you'd gone to that boardroom, she cried. Vanessa Reed doesn't cry. She said you reminded her why she started this company in the first place. So please, Mr. Cole, just be there. Ryan looked at the clock, 5:17 a.m. The meeting was at 2 o'clock p.m. He had time to fix Mrs. Chen's Honda, maybe get a few hours in on the Martinez minivan, shower, change into clothes that didn't smell like motor oil. Time to be a mechanic and a father and somehow also be whatever Vanessa Reed needed him to be. I'll be there, he said, and hung up before he could think better of it. Mia's door was still closed, her sleep the deep kind that only children managed. Ryan left a note on the kitchen table. Morning, sweetheart. Mrs. Chen will take you to school. I have something important to do today. Love you. Dad, and headed down to the garage. The Honda was waiting like a patient friend, and Ryan threw himself into the work with the focus that had always been his refuge. When the world got too complicated, when grief or worry or exhaustion threatened to drown him, there was always the clean simplicity of mechanical problems. This bolt needed tightening. That wire needed replacing. Follow the steps, trust the process, fix what was broken. By 9:30 a.m., Mrs. Chen's transmission was purring like it was brand new, and Ryan had called her with the good news. She'd arrive after her shift to pick it up, and he'd knocked another $200 off the price because her grandson was starting college in the fall, and Ryan remembered what that kind of expense felt like. His phone buzzed constantly with texts from Marcus, updates on board members' positions, changes to the presentation, questions about what Ryan had said yesterday that he couldn't quite remember. The morning blurred past in a haze of work and worry, and before he knew it, it was noon and he was standing in his apartment shower, watching grease and grime swirl down the drain. He didn't own a suit, never had reason to. The best he could do was dark jeans without holes, work boots he'd cleaned until they almost looked presentable, and a button-down shirt he usually saved for parent-teacher conferences and the occasional funeral. Looking at himself in the mirror, Ryan saw exactly what he was, a working man playing dress-up, pretending he belonged in places he didn't. Good enough, he muttered, and headed for his truck. The rain had stopped overnight, leaving the city washed clean and gleaming in unexpected sunshine. Ryan drove through midday traffic that seemed lighter than yesterday, as if the universe had decided to cut him one small break. He made it to Reed Technologies by 1:15 p.m., giving him time to sit in the parking garage and question every decision that had led him to this moment. His phone rang. Mia's school. Ryan's heart dropped as he answered. Hello? Mr. Cole, this is Miss Patterson. I wanted to check in after yesterday. Mia said you had an emergency, that you saved someone's life? Yes, ma'am. A woman collapsed outside my garage. Ruptured appendix. I got her to the hospital. I see. Miss Patterson's voice was difficult to read. Mia was very proud when she told the class this morning. Made quite the impression during share time. She said her daddy might miss meetings sometimes, but it's because he's a hero. Ryan's throat tightened. I'm not... Mr. Cole, I've been teaching for 17 years. I've heard every excuse from every parent, but I've also learned to recognize the ones who are genuinely trying. Mia is a bright, kind, resilient child. That doesn't happen by accident. She paused. Can we reschedule? I'd like to discuss her progress, and there are some academic challenges we should address, but I think you deserve a chance to make this right. Friday, Ryan said immediately. Anytime Friday. I'll be there. I promise. Friday at 3 p.m. Don't make me regret giving you another chance, Mr. Cole. I won't. Thank you. He sat in the truck for another moment, letting the relief wash over him. One promise kept, or at least postponed. One more chance to be the father Mia deserved. Now he just had to get through whatever was waiting for him on the 47th floor. The lobby was busier than yesterday, and Ryan recognized some of the faces from the boardroom, arriving early, looking serious and determined. Rebecca Chen spotted him near the elevators and came over quickly. Mr. Cole, glad you could make it. She lowered her voice. Fair warning, it's It's going to be rough in there. Peterson spent the morning calling board members individually, pressuring them to stick with the original plan. He's arguing that yesterday's postponement was emotional manipulation, that we let a stranger guilt us into delaying a sound business decision. Was he wrong? Rebecca smiled slightly. No, you absolutely guilt-tripped us. But sometimes guilt exists for a reason. Sometimes we need to be reminded that numbers on spreadsheets represent real lives. She gestured toward the elevator. Vanessa's already upstairs. She looks terrible, by the way. Shouldn't even be out of the hospital. But her presentation is solid, really solid. If she can get through it without collapsing, we might actually have a shot at this. The elevator ride felt faster today. Or maybe Ryan was just getting used to the sensation of rising above his life into someone else's world. The 47th floor was chaos compared to yesterday's tense quiet. People rushing between offices, phones ringing, Marcus Chen directing traffic like a conductor managing an orchestra on the edge of falling apart. Ryan! Marcus spotted him immediately. Thank God. She's in her office, down the hall, last door on the left. She wants to brief you before the meeting. Brief me on what? I don't know anything about. Just go, please. We have 30 minutes. Vanessa Reed's office was enormous, with floor-to-ceiling windows offering views of the city that made Ryan dizzy. But he barely noticed the view because Vanessa herself was standing at her desk, one hand pressed to her side where the surgery had been, her face pale, but her eyes sharp and focused. You came, she said, and some of the tension in her shoulders eased. I wasn't sure you would. You asked, Ryan said simply. How are you feeling? Like someone cut me open 12 hours ago. She managed a weak smile. But I felt worse. The night my company almost went bankrupt in 2019, the morning my daughter told me she hated me for never being home. Those hurt more than this. She gestured to a chair. Sit. I need to explain what's going to happen. Ryan sat, feeling out of place among the expensive furniture and subtle displays of wealth that filled the office. Vanessa remained standing, pacing slowly as she talked, the movement seeming to help her think. Peterson's offer is seductive, she began. He's promising every employee will keep their jobs for at least 2 years. He's offering stockholders 30% above current market value. On paper, it's generous. In reality, it's a death sentence. How so? Because in 2 years, once the acquisition is complete and the regulatory scrutiny dies down, he'll gut this place. Fire everyone who isn't absolutely essential, outsource whatever he can, strip out the technology and patents, and fold them into his own company. Reed Technologies will exist in name only, and all the people who built it, who trusted me, will be unemployed. She turned to face him. I started this company because I watched my mother die of cancer while fighting with insurance companies for coverage. I promised myself I'd use technology to fix that broken system. Every employee here believes in that mission. We're not just making software. We're trying to save lives. And your plan saves all of that? My plan is a partnership with 3 smaller tech companies who share our vision. Instead of being swallowed by Meddyne, we merge with allies. We become stronger together, keep our autonomy, keep our mission. Everyone keeps their jobs, not for 2 years, but permanently. The financials are tighter, the profit margins smaller, but we survive as ourselves. She stopped pacing, meeting his eyes. The problem is convincing the board that smaller profits and preserved mission are worth more than Peterson's big payout. That's where I come in? That's where you remind them that some things can't be measured in dollars, that value and price aren't the same thing. Vanessa moved to the window, looking out at the city. My daughter Sophia called this morning. First time she's called voluntarily in 6 months. She heard about the surgery, wanted to know if I was okay. We talked for an hour, a whole hour, Ryan. She told me about school, about her friends, about a boy she likes. Normal things, mother-daughter things. Her voice cracked slightly. And I realized I almost died yesterday. Almost never got to have that conversation. Almost threw away the chance to fix what I'd broken with her, all because I was so focused on this company that I forgot why it mattered. Ryan stood, moved to stand beside her at the window. You asked me yesterday why I stopped to help you. I've been thinking about that. My wife died 3 years ago. Drunk driver, Tuesday afternoon. She was coming home from grocery shopping. I got the call while I was under a car, and for the longest time I couldn't understand why I'd been working on some stranger's vehicle instead of being with her, why I'd kissed her goodbye that morning and told her I'd see her tonight like it was guaranteed. He looked out at all the people moving through their lives below. I stopped for you because I couldn't stop for her. Because I learned the hard way that we don't get to know which moments matter until they're already gone. Vanessa wiped at her eyes. I'm sorry about your wife. I'm sorry about all the time you missed with your daughter, but you get to fix that. That's the gift of surviving. You get another chance. A knock on the door. Marcus stuck his head in. 5 minutes. The boardroom is filling up. Peterson's already there with his legal team. It's showtime. Vanessa straightened, seemed to pull herself together through sheer force of will. Ready to watch me either save or destroy everything I've built. Ready to watch you fight, Ryan corrected. That's all anyone can do. The boardroom was packed, not just the board members from yesterday, but lawyers, accountants, people Ryan didn't recognize, who radiated the kind of authority that came with years of making decisions that affected thousands of lives. Peterson was at the head of the table again, looking confident and relaxed, a predator who'd already decided the hunt was over. Vanessa walked in like she owned the place, which Ryan supposed she technically did, and the room fell silent. She looked terrible, moving carefully to avoid stressing her incision, but her voice was steady as she addressed the board. Thank you all for returning today. I know yesterday's postponement was unconventional, but I appreciate the grace you showed in granting it. She glanced at Ryan, who'd taken a seat along the wall, trying to be invisible. Mr. Cole bought me the time I needed. Now let me show you what I've done with it. For the next 40 minutes, Vanessa walked the board through her proposal with a clarity and precision that left Ryan in awe. She had numbers, projections, testimonials from the partner companies, risk assessments that addressed every possible concern. She talked about market positioning and competitive advantages and synergistic opportunities, all language that went over Ryan's head, but underneath all the business jargon, her message was simple. We can survive as ourselves. We can keep our promise. When she finished, the room was quiet. Then Peterson stood. That was an impressive presentation, Vanessa. Truly. You've clearly put a lot of thought into this. His tone was respectful, but Ryan heard the condescension underneath. But let's be honest with ourselves. Your plan requires perfect execution, sustained cooperation between 4 different companies, and assumes market conditions that are, at best, optimistic. My offer is guaranteed money, guaranteed security, guaranteed survival. Guaranteed surrender, Vanessa countered. You're asking us to trust that you'll keep your promises about employee retention when you have no legal obligation to do so. You're asking us to believe that Meddyne, a company with a documented history of post-acquisition layoffs, will somehow treat Reed Technologies differently. Why should we? Peterson's smile hardened. Because the alternative is gambling everything on a partnership that might fall apart in 6 months, leaving your employees with nothing. At least my offer gives them something. It gives them 2 years before the axe falls. That's not something. That's a stay of execution. That's business, Peterson said flatly. Companies are bought and sold every day. Employees move on. The world keeps turning. Your romantic notion that Reed Technologies is somehow special, somehow different from every other tech company that's faced this decision. It's admirable, Vanessa, but it's not realistic. Maybe not, Vanessa said quietly, but yesterday I almost died. And in the moment when I thought I might not make it, do you know what I regretted? Not this company, not market share or profit margins or competitive positioning. I regretted all the promises I'd broken, all the people I'd let down, all the times I'd chosen the easy path over the right one. She looked around the room. You all have families, people you love, things that matter more than the numbers in your portfolios. If you were the ones lying on that pavement yesterday, bleeding out, wondering if you'd get another chance, what would you regret? The room was silent. Ryan saw several board members shifting uncomfortably, saw the sharp-featured woman, Helen, staring at Vanessa with something like respect, then a voice from the back. I'd regret not fighting harder for what I believed in. Everyone turned. An older man Ryan hadn't noticed before was standing, mid-70s, with white hair and a weathered face that spoke of a life fully lived. My name is David Foster. I've been on this board since Vanessa founded the company 8 years ago. I watched her build Reed Technologies from nothing, watched her turn down easier paths and bigger paydays because she believed in the mission. And I'm ashamed to say I was ready to vote for Peterson's deal yesterday, ready to take the money and tell myself we'd done the best we could. He moved toward the table, his eyes on Vanessa. But then this young man, Mr. Cole, walked into our boardroom and reminded us that price and value aren't the same thing, that sometimes the smart business decision isn't the right one, and I realized I'd forgotten why I joined this board in the first place. He turned to face Peterson. With all due respect, Mr. Peterson, I don't want to spend my final years on this earth regretting that I let fear make my decisions. I'm voting for Vanessa's plan. Peterson's face flushed. David, that's emotional reasoning. Damn right it is, David interrupted. Because business isn't just spreadsheets and profit margins. It's people. And I'd rather bet on Vanessa Reed's people than your promises any day. Rebecca stood next. I vote for the partnership plan. Then another board member. Then another. The momentum shifted like a wave breaking, and Ryan watched Peterson's confident expression crack and crumble as the votes stacked up against him. When the count was done, 10 in favor of Vanessa's plan, 5 for Peterson's offer, the silver-haired CEO gathered his papers with barely concealed fury. You're making a mistake, all of you. When this partnership falls apart, when the market turns and you're scrambling for financing, don't come crying to Meddyne for a rescue. We won't need rescuing, Vanessa said quietly. We'll have each other. Peterson left with his legal team trailing behind, and the boardroom erupted in conversation, congratulations and concerns and questions about next steps. Vanessa answered them all with a patience Ryan couldn't fathom, given that she was probably running on painkillers and adrenaline. Finally, after nearly an hour of post-vote discussion, the room cleared. Vanessa slumped into a chair, all her careful composure dissolving. Did we just do that? She whispered. Did we actually win? You won, Ryan said. I just watched. You gave the speech that made it possible. She looked up at him. That bit about price versus value, I heard echoes of it in everything they said today. You changed how they think, Ryan. That's not nothing. I just told them what my father taught me. He checked his watch, 4:30 p.m. He'd promised to pick up Mia by 5 on twelve, and for once, he was going to make it on time. I should go. Wait. Vanessa stood carefully, moving to her desk. She pulled out a folder, handed it to him. This is the partnership proposal I mentioned yesterday. Not charity, a real business arrangement. I want to invest in Cole's Auto Repair. Turn it into a high-end service center that treats every customer like they matter, that charges fair prices, that values integrity over profit margins. You'd keep full control of operations. I'd just provide the capital and business infrastructure. Ryan opened the folder, saw numbers that made his head spin. This is too much. I can't. You saved my life, Vanessa said simply. You saved my company. You reminded me what actually matters. Let me do this one thing for you. Let me help you build something that lasts. I need to think about it, talk to some people, make sure I'm not getting in over my head. Take all the time you need. The offer stands. She smiled, tired but genuine. Now go pick up your daughter. Keep that promise. Ryan drove across town with the folder sitting on his passenger seat like a ticking bomb. The numbers inside represented everything he'd ever wanted. Security for Mia, stability, the ability to stop choosing between fixing someone's car and paying his own rent. But it also represented risk, change, stepping into a world he didn't understand with money he couldn't afford to lose. He made it to Mia's school at 4:47 p.m., 13 minutes early. A miracle by Ryan Cole standards. Mia came running out when she saw his truck, her backpack bouncing, her face bright with the uncomplicated joy that children somehow maintain despite everything the world threw at them. Daddy, you're early. Promised I would be, Ryan said, scooping her up. How was school? Good. We learned about fractions and Tommy Morrison threw up in science class, and Miss Patterson said you called about Friday. Mia pulled back to look at him seriously. Are you in trouble? No, sweetheart. Just rescheduling our conference. Everything's fine. Then is the lady you saved okay? The millionaire? Ryan blinked. How do you know she's a millionaire? Mrs. Chen looked her up on the computer. Vanessa Reed. She's super rich and super important. Did you really go to her meeting? Yeah, I did. Did you save her company too? Ryan thought about that boardroom, about David Foster standing up, about the way the vote had shifted when people remembered why they'd cared in the first place. I think maybe I helped, but she's the one who did the real work. They stopped for pizza on the way home, a rare treat that made Mia's eyes light up. Over pepperoni slices and root beer, she told him about her day in the rambling, detailed way that 7-year-olds specialized in, and Ryan listened like it was the most important story in the world. Because right now, in this moment, it was. Later, after Mia was asleep and Ryan was sitting at his kitchen table with the folder spread open, his phone rang. Unknown number. Mr. Cole? This is David Foster. I hope I'm not calling too late. Mr. Foster, no, it's fine. What can I do for you? I wanted to thank you, first of all. What you said yesterday about your father teaching you to stop, that resonated with me. My own father was a factory worker, believed in doing right by people even when it cost him. I'd forgotten that somewhere along the way. You reminded me. I'm glad it helped. I'm calling for another reason, though. I'm retiring from the board at the end of the year. 76 is too old to be making decisions about companies I don't fully understand anymore. But before I go, I want to make sure Reed Technologies has board members who remember what matters. People who've lived real lives, faced real struggles, understand what's at stake for the employees counting on us. A pause. I'd like to nominate you for my seat, Mr. Cole, if you're interested. Ryan laughed. Couldn't help it. Mr. Foster, I fix cars for a living. I don't know anything about running a tech company. Neither did I when I started. But I learned. And more importantly, I brought a perspective that the MBAs and finance experts couldn't. You do the same. David's voice was warm. Think about it. No pressure. But the board could use someone who stops when people need help. That's rarer than you'd think in our world. I'll think about it, Ryan said, knowing even as he said it that his life was somehow tilting in directions he'd never imagined. After David hung up, Ryan sat with the folder and the idea and the impossibility of everything that had happened in the past 36 hours. A woman had collapsed. He'd stopped. And now his entire world was changing. His phone buzzed with a text from Marcus. Vanessa's back in the hospital. Nothing serious, just exhaustion and pushing too hard too soon. But she wanted me to tell you, thank you for everything. You gave her back something she'd lost. Ryan typed back, she's not the only one. Because somewhere in the chaos of the past 2 days, Ryan Cole had found something too, not money or opportunity or board positions, though those were all surreal enough. He'd found the reminder that stopping to help wasn't weakness or foolishness or irresponsibility. Sometimes it was the exact right thing. The only thing. The thing that changed everything. He looked at the folder again, at all those numbers that represented possibility. Then he looked at the picture of Mia on his keychain, her gap-toothed smile promising that better days were possible if you just kept showing up, kept trying, kept stopping when people needed help. Maybe he would take Vanessa's offer. Maybe he'd join that board. Maybe his garage could become something more while still staying something real. Or maybe none of it would work out and he'd be right back where he started, struggling to pay rent, working too many hours, trying to be enough for a daughter who deserved everything. But at least he'd stopped. At least he'd tried. At least when Mia asked him someday what kind of man her father was, he could tell her. The kind who didn't walk past people who needed help. The kind who kept promises even when it cost him. The kind who believed that value and price weren't the same thing. The kind his own father had raised him to be. Ryan closed the folder and set it aside. Tomorrow would bring new decisions, new challenges, new moments where he'd have to choose between the safe path and the right one. But tonight, he'd kept his promise to pick up Mia on time. He'd helped save a company and reminded a room full of powerful people what actually mattered. He'd been early instead of late, present instead of absent, the father he'd always wanted to be. Tomorrow could wait. Tonight was enough. The rest of the week moved at a strange pace, too fast in some moments, glacially slow in others, as if time itself couldn't decide whether Ryan's life was changing or simply pretending to. He'd wake at dawn expecting everything to snap back to normal, to discover that the boardroom and the vote and Vanessa Reed's offer were all some fever dream brought on by bad coffee and exhaustion. But then his phone would buzz with messages from Marcus about partnership details, or Rebecca would call asking about his thoughts on board governance, and reality would reassert itself in ways that felt almost violent. Thursday morning brought Mrs. Chen to pick up her Honda, and she cried when she saw it running smoothly, the transmission working like it had never been broken. "You're too good to us, Ryan," she said, pressing crumpled bills into his hand, more than he'd asked for, less than the work was worth. "My grandson, he starts college in the fall. Engineering, because of men like you who keep our cars running so we can get to work, so we can save money, so we can give our children better lives." Ryan had hugged her, this small woman who'd watched Mia more times than he could count, who brought them soup when they were sick and never asked for anything in return. "Your grandson's going to do great things, Mrs. Chen. Tell him that his grandmother's mechanic believes in him." After she left, Ryan stood in his empty garage and looked at the folder Vanessa had given him. The numbers inside represented enough capital to transform this place. New equipment, expanded space, the ability to hire help so he wasn't doing everything alone. But it also represented expectations, obligations, the weight of someone else's investment in his success. His father's voice echoed in his memory. "The hardest part about accepting help isn't the pride, son. It's the fear that you'll waste it, that you'll let down the person who believed in you." Ryan had been 12 when his father said that, watching his grandfather refuse a loan from a friend that could have saved the garage from bankruptcy. They'd lost it anyway 6 months later, and his grandfather had worked for someone else until the day he died, bitter and broken by pride that had cost him everything. "Don't be like me," his grandfather had whispered on his deathbed. "When someone offers you a hand, take it. Pride's just fear wearing a fancy suit." Ryan picked up his phone and called Vanessa's number. She answered on the second ring, her voice still carrying the tiredness of someone recovering from surgery. "Ryan, is everything okay? Your offer, the partnership, I want to accept, but I need to do it on my terms." A pause, then, "I'm listening." "I keep operational control, full decision-making authority on what jobs we take, who we hire, how we treat customers. You provide the capital and business guidance, but you don't override my judgment on the things that matter, the human things." "Agreed. And I want a clause that if I ever feel like we're becoming the kind of business that values profit over people, I can buy you out at fair market value. No penalties, no hard feelings." "Also agreed. Anything else?" Ryan looked around his garage, at the concrete floor his grandfather had poured, at the walls his father had painted, at the legacy of 3 generations of coal men who'd believed that honest work and fair dealing mattered more than the bottom line. "Yeah, one more thing. The name stays Cole's Auto Repair. Not Cole Reed, not some fancy rebranding. Just Cole's, because that's what it's always been, and that's what it needs to stay." Vanessa's laugh was warm. "You drive a hard bargain, Mr. Cole. I accept your terms. Marcus will draw up the paperwork. We can sign next week if that works for you." "Next week is good. How are you feeling?" "Like someone who ignored medical advice and pushed too hard too fast. I'm back home now, under strict orders to rest. Sophia flew in from school, first time she's been home in 6 months. We've been watching terrible movies and eating ice cream and talking about everything except work. It's been," her voice caught slightly, "it's been perfect." "Good. You earned it." "We both did. Speaking of which, David Foster told me he offered you his board seat. Are you considering it?" Ryan had been avoiding thinking about that particular impossibility. "I don't know. It feels crazy. I barely graduated high school. I don't have a business degree or management experience or any of the things board members are supposed to have." "You have something better. You have perspective. You see people as humans instead of resources. That's what we need." Vanessa's voice grew more serious. "I'm not going to pressure you, Ryan. This has to be your choice. But I will say this. Yesterday I had lunch with 3 of my partner CEOs from the merger. We talked strategy and synergies and market positioning, all the usual corporate language. But at the end, each of them pulled me aside separately and asked the same question. Who was that mechanic who changed your board's mind? And when I told them your story,
Every single one of them said they wish they had someone like you advising them. They don't know me. They know enough. They know you stopped when no one else would. They know you walked into a hostile room and spoke truth that people didn't want to hear. They know you value things that can't be quantified on a balance sheet. She paused. Think about it. You'd be representing not just Reed Technologies, but all the people like Mrs. Chen and the Martinez family. All the regular people who get forgotten when executives make decisions. We need that voice in the room. After the call ended, Ryan worked on the Martinez minivan with hands that knew their job so well his mind could wander. He thought about boardrooms and balance sheets, about his father's lessons and his grandfather's regrets, about Mia growing up watching her father choose between paying rent and buying groceries. What kind of example was he setting if he turned down opportunities out of fear? What kind of lesson was he teaching if he let imposter syndrome make his decisions? But also, what kind of man would he become if he lost himself in a world of corporate politics and quarterly earnings reports? What if the very things that made him valuable to Vanessa's board were the things that world would slowly erode? His phone buzzed. A text from Mia's school. Reminder, parent-teacher conference tomorrow, Friday, at 3:00 p.m. Looking forward to seeing you. Miss Patterson, tomorrow. The rescheduled conference that represented both a second chance and a test. Could he keep this promise now that he'd kept the last one? Or would some new crisis pull him away, some new emergency that seemed more urgent than his daughter's education? Ryan finished the minivan's timing belt by 2:00 p.m., called Mr. Martinez with the good news, and was cleaning up when a BMW pulled into his lot. The car was pristine, probably less than a year old, and the man who stepped out wore a suit that screamed money with every perfectly tailored line. "Are you Ryan Cole?" The man's voice was clipped, professional, slightly impatient. "That's me. What can I do for you?" "My name is James Peterson." He watched Ryan's face for recognition. "I believe you know my father, William Peterson." Ryan straightened slowly, wiping his hands on a rag. The silver-haired CEO who'd tried to buy out Reed Technologies, who'd lost the vote, who'd left the boardroom promising they'd regret their choice. "I know of him. He's been talking about you all week. The mechanic who ruined his deal. The nobody who somehow convinced a room full of intelligent people to make a terrible business decision." James's smile didn't reach his eyes. "I wanted to meet this miracle worker myself. If you're here to change my mind about something, you're wasting your time. The vote's done." "Oh, I'm not here about the vote. I'm here about this." James pulled out his phone, showed Ryan a news article with the headline, "Local mechanic becomes unlikely hero in Reed Technologies drama." Below it was a photo, Ryan leaving the hospital, Vanessa being wheeled into surgery, the whole story laid out for public consumption. "You're becoming quite famous, Mr. Cole, the working-class hero who stood up to corporate greed. Very compelling narrative." "I didn't do it for a narrative. I did it because someone needed help." "Of course you did. And I'm sure that sincerity is exactly what makes you so useful to Vanessa Reed." James pocketed his phone. "Let me give you some advice, mechanic to whatever you're becoming. The business world isn't like fixing cars. You can't just identify a problem and solve it with the right tools. People are complicated. They lie. They manipulate. They use sincere men like you to advance their own agendas." Is there a point to this? The point is that Vanessa Reed is brilliant at making people feel like they're part of something meaningful. She made you feel like a hero, made you believe you'd save 3,000 jobs. And maybe you did, for now. But when her partnership falls apart, when the market turns and those companies start scrambling, when layoffs come anyway because they always do, you'll be the face of the failure. You'll be the mechanic who gave bad advice, who let emotion override business sense, who helped doom the very people you thought you were saving. Ryan felt anger rising in his chest, hot and tight. "Your father lost. Get over it." "My father will be fine. He's got dozens of other deals, other opportunities. But you?" James looked around the shabby garage with barely concealed disdain. "You've got this. And when you inevitably disappoint Vanessa Reed, when you realize you're in over your head, when the board seat and the partnership and all the promises dissolve, you'll still have this. If you're lucky. If she doesn't sue you for breach of contract or drag your name through the press when things go wrong. I think you should leave. I'm just trying to help you see reality, Mr. Cole. You're a good mechanic.
Stick to what you know. Don't let Vanessa Reed turn you into her next project, her next proof that regular people can succeed in her world. Because when you fail, and you will fail, she'll move on to the next inspiring story, and you'll be left with nothing.
James climbed back into his BMW and drove away, leaving Ryan standing in his garage with doubts crawling through his mind like poison. What if James was right? What if he was being used, manipulated, set up to take the fall when things inevitably went wrong? What if his sincerity was just naivety wearing a different mask? He called Vanessa without planning to, the need to hear her voice overriding his usual reluctance to bother people. Ryan, what's wrong? James Peterson just left my garage. He said. Ryan stopped, unsure how to articulate the fear that had taken root. He said, I'm in over my head. That when your partnership fails, I'll be blamed. That you're just using me for the optics of having a working-class board member. Silence on the line. Then Vanessa's voice, gentle but firm. James Peterson is his father's son. He sees the world as a zero-sum game where someone's always getting used. But Ryan, I need you to hear this. I'm not offering you a board seat because of optics. I'm offering it because you changed how I think about my own company. Because you reminded me why I started this in the first place. Because every decision I make is better when I imagine you asking me whether it's the right thing or just the profitable thing. But what if I screw up? What if I give bad advice and people lose their jobs anyway? Then we'll have tried our best and failed together. That's business. That's life. You can't guarantee success, Ryan. You can only guarantee that you tried to do right by people. She paused. Remember what you told the board? About your father teaching you that you can't save everyone, but that doesn't mean you stop trying. That's what I'm asking you to do. Not to be perfect, just to keep trying. After they hung up, Ryan sat in his office and tried to quiet the doubts James Peterson had planted. He thought about his father, who'd lost customers by charging too little and never made enough to save for retirement, but had died knowing he'd treated people fairly. He thought about his grandfather, whose pride had cost him everything. He thought about Sarah, who'd believed Ryan could be more than his circumstances suggested, who'd seen potential in a struggling mechanic that he'd never seen in himself. What would you tell me to do? He asked the empty air, asking Sarah, asking his father, asking anyone who might be listening. Am I being stupid? Am I being brave? How do I tell the difference? The silence didn't answer, but somewhere in it, Ryan found his own voice. The one that said fear was just another name for caring about the outcome. The one that said making mistakes while trying to do right was better than playing it safe and doing nothing. The one that sounded like his father. Do the next right thing, son. That's all you can ever do. Friday morning arrived with the kind of crisp autumn air that made everything feel possible. Ryan opened the garage early and found a package waiting by the door, a thick envelope with Reed Technologies letterhead. Inside was the partnership contract, marked with sticky tabs everywhere he needed to sign, along with a note in Vanessa's handwriting. No pressure. Read it thoroughly. Have a lawyer review it if you want. This is real, Ryan, not a favor, a partnership between equals. Ryan had never felt less equal to anything in his life, but he read the contract anyway, parsing through legal language that might as well have been ancient Greek. The terms were exactly what they'd discussed: his control, her capital, an exit clause that protected both of them. It was generous to the point of seeming unreal. His phone rang. An unknown number that Ryan almost didn't answer. Mr. Cole? This is Janet Morrison. I'm a reporter with the Tribune. I'm writing a story about the Reed Technologies vote, and I'd love to get your perspective. Would you have time for a quick interview? I don't think that's a good idea. It would just be 5 minutes. Our readers are fascinated by your story. The single dad mechanic who convinced a corporate board to choose integrity over profit. That's powerful stuff. I didn't do anything special. I just told them what I thought. Exactly. That's what makes it special. Most people would have called 911 and gone back to work. You stopped. You helped. You went to that meeting. You're an ordinary person who did something extraordinary, and that's a story worth telling. Ryan thought about James Peterson's warning, about becoming a narrative someone else controlled. I appreciate the interest, but I'm not looking for publicity. I was just trying to help someone who needed it.
And that humility is exactly why people need to hear from you. In a world where, I'm sorry, but no. If you want to write about Reed Technologies, talk to Vanessa Reed. She's the one who did the real work. I was just there. He hung up before she could argue, but the call left him unsettled. How many other reporters were looking for the story? How long before this garage was filled with cameras and questions instead of cars and quiet work? At 2:00 p.m., Ryan closed the garage early and went upstairs to shower and change. This time he put on his best jeans and the shirt Sarah had bought him for their last anniversary. Dark blue, still crisp because he'd worn it maybe twice since she died. Looking in the mirror, he saw a man who was trying. That would have to be enough. He arrived at Ridgemont Elementary at 2:47 p.m., 13 minutes early for the second time in a week. A personal record. Mia was waiting outside her classroom, swinging her legs from a bench, her face lighting up when she saw him. "Daddy, you came!" "Of course I came, I promised." Ryan knelt down to her level. "How was your day?" "Good. We had a math test and I think I did really good. Miss Patterson said you could come in now." Miss Patterson's classroom was organized chaos. Colorful posters about reading and kindness, student artwork covering every available surface, a sense that learning happened here despite the system's best efforts to make it sterile. The teacher herself was younger than Ryan expected, maybe early 30s, with kind eyes that had seen too many broken promises from well-meaning parents. "Mr. Cole, thank you for coming." She gestured to a small chair beside her desk. Adult-sized people were clearly an afterthought in elementary school furniture design. "Mia, sweetheart, why don't you read in the library corner while your dad and I talk?" Once Mia was settled with a book, Miss Patterson pulled out a folder thick with papers. "I want to start by saying that Mia is a wonderful student. She's kind, creative, engaged in class. But I'm concerned about her math skills. She's falling behind grade level, and I think it's because she's missed some foundational concepts from earlier years." Ryan felt his stomach drop. "How far behind?" "About a year, maybe a year and a half. It's not uncommon for kids who've experienced trauma, losing her mother so young, to have academic gaps. The emotional work of processing grief takes energy that might otherwise go to learning." Miss Patterson's voice was gentle. "I'm not telling you this to worry you, Mr. Cole. I'm telling you because with the right support, we can help her catch up. Tutoring, extra practice at home, maybe some educational games that make math feel less intimidating. I can help her at home. I'm good with numbers. Have to be in my line of work." "That's wonderful. But I also want you to know about some resources. There's a free tutoring program at the community center twice a week after school, and the library has a homework help program on Saturdays." She paused. "I know you work a lot, Mr. Cole. I know you're doing your best, but Mia needs consistent support right now, and I want to make sure she gets it." Ryan thought about the partnership contract sitting on his kitchen table, about the capital that could buy private tutors and educational tools and all the support Mia needed. But he also thought about the cost of that help, the time he'd spend in boardrooms instead of helping with homework, the energy he'd pour into corporate decisions instead of being present for his daughter. "I'll make it work," he said. "Whatever she needs. I'll be there." "I believe you will," Miss Patterson smiled. "Mia told the class about you saving that woman's life. She was so proud. She said, 'My daddy helps people even when it's hard.' That's a powerful lesson you're teaching her, Mr. Cole. Don't lose sight of that while you're worrying about math scores." They talked for another 20 minutes about strategies and goals, about Mia's strengths and challenges, about the normal 7-year-old stuff that somehow felt monumental when it was your own kid. When they finished, Ryan felt both overwhelmed and relieved, the weight of knowing what needed to be done, the comfort of having a plan to do it. Mia bounced over as soon as she saw them stand up. "Are we going to get ice cream? You said if you made the conference, we could get ice cream." Ryan had said that in a moment of desperate promise-making when he was trying to convince her that this time would be different. "You remembered that, huh?" "I remember everything you promised, Daddy." The words hit harder than she meant them to, a reminder of all the broken promises that lived between them like ghosts. But they also carried hope, the possibility that keeping promises could become the pattern instead of the exception. "Then let's go get ice cream," Ryan said. "The biggest sundae they have." They went to Morrison's ice cream parlor, a local place that had survived 3 generations by making everything from scratch and treating every customer like family. Mia ordered a sundae with so many toppings it was more candy than ice cream, and Ryan got a simple vanilla cone that reminded him of summers with his father. "Daddy?" Mia swirled her spoon through melting ice cream, suddenly serious. "Are we going to be okay? Mrs. Chen said you might be getting a new job. Does that mean we have to move?" "No, sweetheart. We're not moving. I might be doing some extra work with the lady I helped, Ms. Reed, but the garage will still be our home. Nothing's changing that." "But we might have more money." Ryan studied his daughter's face, seeing worry there that no 7-year-old should carry. "We might. Would that make you happy?" Mia thought about this with the seriousness of someone weighing important matters. "Only if you're still my daddy. Only if you still have time to make pancakes on Saturday and help me with my homework and read me stories at night. Mrs. Chen's friend, Mr. Wang, he got a fancy job and now his kids never see him. I don't want that." Ryan's throat tightened. "Come here." He pulled her close, feeling the weight of her small body, the trust she still placed in him despite every disappointment. "I promise you, Mia, no matter what job I have or how much money we do or don't have, I will always be your daddy first. Always. That's the promise I'll never break." "You promise? Like really real promise?" "Really real promise. Cross my heart." Mia seemed satisfied with this, returning to her sundae with the quick emotional pivot that children manage so effortlessly. But Ryan sat with the weight of his promise, knowing that the real test was coming. Could he accept Vanessa's offer and David Foster's board seat without losing sight of what mattered? Could he build something bigger without sacrificing the small, essential moments that made up a life? His phone buzzed with a text from Marcus. "Board meeting next Thursday to formalize partnership details. David Foster will officially propose you for his seat. Are you ready?" Ryan looked at Mia, chocolate ice cream on her nose, pure joy on her face because her daddy had kept his promise and bought her ice cream. He thought about 3,000 employees who depended on good decisions, about Vanessa Reed learning to balance ambition with humanity, about his father's voice reminding him that you couldn't save everyone, but you kept trying anyway. He texted back, "I'm ready." That night, after Mia was asleep and the apartment was quiet, Ryan sat at his kitchen table with the partnership contract spread in front of him. He read every word, every clause, every protection and obligation. It was real. It was happening. His life was changing in ways he'd never imagined. But underneath the fear and doubt, underneath the voice that sounded like James Peterson saying he was in over his head, Ryan felt something else. Something that felt like his father's hand on his shoulder, like Sarah's belief that he could be more than his circumstances, like his grandfather's deathbed wisdom about accepting help when it was offered. He felt ready. Ryan pulled out a pen, just a regular ballpoint from the junk drawer, nothing fancy, and signed his name on every marked line. The signature was messy, unpracticed. The handwriting of someone who worked with his hands instead of pushing papers. But it was his choice, his leap into uncertainty. When the last page was signed, Ryan stacked the papers neatly and slipped them back into the envelope. He'd drop them off at Reed Technologies tomorrow, make it official, cross the threshold from mechanic to something else he didn't quite have a name for yet. But tonight, in the quiet darkness of his apartment, Ryan allowed himself a moment of pure terror mixed with something that might have been hope. The future was unknowable, the risks were real, the possibility of failure loomed large. But so did the possibility of success, of building something that lasted, of teaching Mia that sometimes the scariest choice was the right one, of honoring his father's legacy not by doing the same things he'd done, but by following the same principles that had guided him. Do the next right thing. Stop when people need help. Remember that value and price aren't the same. Keep your promises, especially the ones to yourself. Ryan looked at the contract one more time, at his signature declaring his commitment to something bigger than himself, and felt a strange sense of peace settle over him. He was terrified, he was uncertain, he was probably in way over his head, but he was ready. And sometimes that was enough. Saturday morning arrived with rain again. Softer this time, the kind that whispered against windows instead of hammering. Ryan woke to find Mia already up, sitting at the kitchen table with her math workbook spread open, her tongue poking out slightly as she concentrated on a problem that was clearly giving her trouble. "You're up early."
Ryan said, moving to start the coffee maker before remembering it was still broken. He settled for instant instead, the bitter taste a small sacrifice. I want to get better at math, Mia said without looking up. Miss Patterson said I need to practice more. So I'm practicing. Ryan sat beside her, looking at the long division problem she was wrestling with. Want some help? Can you do math? Real math, not just the adding kind. I do math every day, sweetheart. When I'm figuring out how much a repair will cost, or measuring parts, or calculating time, that's all math, just in disguise. He pulled the workbook closer. Let me show you a trick my dad taught me. They spent the next hour working through problems together, and Ryan discovered that teaching math to a 7-year-old required a patience he didn't know he possessed. But every time Mia's face lit up with understanding, every time she solved a problem on her own and looked to him for approval, something in Ryan's chest expanded. This was what mattered. Not boardrooms or business deals, but this. Saturday morning math lessons with chocolate chip pancakes waiting as a reward. By noon, Ryan had dropped off the signed partnership contract at Reed Technologies, where Marcus had greeted him with a handshake that felt like a threshold being crossed. Welcome to the team, Mr. Cole. Officially, Vanessa wants to schedule a lunch meeting next week to discuss rollout plans for the garage expansion. Rollout plans? The corporate language still felt foreign in Ryan's mouth. Timeline for renovations, hiring strategy, marketing approach, all the fun stuff. Marcus smiled at Ryan's expression. Don't worry. We'll translate everything into normal human language. Vanessa's very good at that. Now Ryan stood in his garage, looking at the space with new eyes. This concrete floor, these walls, this business that had barely survived, all of it was about to transform into something he couldn't quite picture yet. The weight of possibility sat heavy on his shoulders. His phone rang. Vanessa. I heard you signed, she said, and Ryan could hear the smile in her voice. No second thoughts? About 1,000 second thoughts, but I signed anyway. That's called courage, Ryan, or stupidity. Sometimes they look the same. She laughed, the sound lighter than he'd heard from her before. I wanted to invite you and Mia to dinner tonight. Nothing formal, just Sophia and me and some truly mediocre takeout. She wants to meet the man who saved her mother's life. Ryan's first instinct was to decline, to maintain the professional distance he assumed was appropriate. But then he thought about Mia, who'd been asking about the rich lady all week, and about Vanessa's daughter who'd flown home to be with her mother after years of distance. We'd like that, he heard himself say. What time? That evening, Ryan dressed Mia in her nicest outfit, a purple dress Sarah had bought her that was getting too small but still fit well enough, and drove to an address Marcus had texted him in a neighborhood where houses had names instead of numbers. The Reed residence was smaller than Ryan expected, a tasteful brownstone that whispered wealth instead of shouting it. Sophia answered the door, and Ryan saw immediately where Vanessa's determination came from. The girl was 16, but carried herself with a confidence that seemed earned rather than inherited. Mr. Cole, I'm Sophia. Mom's in the kitchen pretending she knows how to cook. Fair warning, she doesn't. I heard that, Vanessa's voice called from somewhere inside. Sophia grinned and stepped aside. Come in. Is this Mia? Mom said you were 7. I was 7 once. It's a good age. Mia, normally shy around strangers, seemed charmed. You're really tall. You'll be tall too someday, possibly taller than me. The universe is full of possibilities. Sophia led them through a house that felt more like a home than Ryan had anticipated. Books scattered on tables, photographs covering the walls, the comfortable messiness of people actually living rather than just displaying wealth. Vanessa emerged from the kitchen wearing jeans and a sweater, her hair pulled back, looking more human than Ryan had ever seen her. I hope you like Thai food. I attempted to cook and Sophia staged an intervention, so we ordered in. Thai food is perfect, Ryan said, and meant it. Dinner was chaotic in the best way. Sophia and Mia hit it off immediately, the teenager showing the younger girl her phone and some game that involved animated cats, while Vanessa and Ryan sat across from each other and talked about everything except business. They talked about raising daughters alone, about the impossible balance of work and parenting, about the guilt that came with every choice that took you away from your child. The night before my surgery, Vanessa said quietly, while the girls were distracted, I was sitting in my office at 2 in the morning, preparing for that board meeting, and my phone rang. It was Sophia. She'd had a nightmare. Still gets them sometimes, and she wanted to talk to her mom. But I was so focused on the presentation that I told her I'd call her back in an hour. She stared at her plate. I never called back. I got so absorbed in work that I forgot. And the next morning, I collapsed. And all I could think while I was lying on that pavement was, what if those were the last words my daughter heard from me? I'll call you back. But they weren't, Ryan said. You got another chance. Because you stopped. Because you chose to help instead of walking past. Vanessa met his eyes. I've been thinking about that a lot. How many times I've walked past people who needed help because I was too busy, too focused on whatever seemed urgent. How many chances I've missed to be the kind of person I thought I was. Ryan thought about all the times he'd made similar choices, promising Mia he'd be home for dinner and arriving 3 hours late, missing school plays and parent nights because some customer needed their car. We all do it. We all convince ourselves that the urgent thing is the important thing. But you stopped. You had somewhere to be, Mia's conference, and you stopped anyway. And missed the conference. Let's not make me into some kind of saint here. I disappointed my daughter to help a stranger. That's not exactly heroic. But you rescheduled. You showed up the next time. You made it right. Vanessa leaned forward. That's what I'm learning, Ryan. It's not about being perfect. It's about being present when it matters, and fixing it when you mess up. Sophia and I, we're trying to do that now. Make up for lost time. Have actual conversations instead of just logistics about school and schedules. Sophia appeared at that moment, Mia in tow. Mom, Mia wants to see your office. Can we show her? Of course. Vanessa stood, wincing slightly, the surgery still healing. Come on, I'll give you the grand tour. The office was upstairs and it was impressive in its contradictions. High-tech equipment mixed with children's drawings, business awards sharing shelf space with soccer trophies and science fair ribbons. It was the office of someone trying to hold together two competing versions of themselves. Mia gravitated immediately to a photograph on the desk. Vanessa and a younger Sophia, maybe 5 or 6, both laughing at something off camera. You look happy here. We were, Vanessa said softly. That was before I got so busy that I forgot how to stop and be happy. But we're working on it now, right, Soph? We're working on it, Sophia agreed, and something in her voice suggested forgiveness was happening, slowly but surely. Later, after Mia had fallen asleep on Vanessa's couch and Ryan was carrying her to the truck, Sophia stopped him at the door. Thank you, Mr. Cole, for saving my mom. I know you probably hear that a lot now, but I mean it. She's different since the surgery, more present. Like she remembered she has a daughter who needs her. She never forgot, Ryan said. Sometimes we just lose sight of things when we're scared of failing at them. Being a parent is terrifying. We all mess it up in different ways. Yeah, but you stopped when she needed help. That's not nothing. Sophia hugged him quickly, fiercely. Take care of your little girl. She's lucky to have you. Driving home through quiet streets, Mia asleep in the passenger seat, Ryan thought about luck and choices and the thin line between them. Was he lucky that Vanessa had collapsed outside his garage? Lucky that he'd stopped? Or had he simply made a choice that had rippled out in ways he couldn't have predicted? Sunday passed in the comfortable routine of laundry and grocery shopping and homework help, but Monday brought reality crashing back. Ryan opened the garage to find a news van parked across the street and a reporter approaching with a cameraman in tow. Mr. Cole, Janet Morrison from the Tribune. I know you declined an interview before, but our readers are really interested in your story. Just 5 minutes? No, thank you, but no. Ryan moved to unlock the garage door. What about your daughter? How does she feel about her father becoming a business leader? Does she understand the significance? Ryan turned, and something in his expression made the reporter take a step back. My daughter is off limits. You want to write about me? Fine. But you leave her out of it. She's 7 years old and she deserves to be a kid, not part of anyone's narrative. Of course, I didn't mean... You meant exactly what you said. Now please leave my property before I call the police. The news van left, but Ryan stood outside his garage for a long moment, feeling exposed in a way he'd never experienced. This was the cost of visibility, he realized. The price of stepping into a world where people thought they had a right to your story.
His phone rang. David Foster. Ryan, I saw the news crew outside your garage. Marcus told me they've been bothering you. I wanted to apologize. This is my fault. I mentioned your name to a friend who's a business journalist, and apparently it spread from there. It's fine. I handled it. I know you did, but I also know that kind of attention can be invasive. If it continues, let me know. I have lawyers who specialize in privacy issues. One of the perks of being a cranky old man with resources, I can make annoying people go away. David's voice softened. How are you feeling about Thursday, the board meeting? Terrified, excited, mostly terrified. Good. That means you're taking it seriously. The ones who aren't scared are usually the ones who shouldn't be there. David paused. I'm going to sponsor your nomination, which means I'll speak on your behalf. But they'll ask you questions about your background, your vision, why you want to serve. Just be honest. Tell them what you told us in that first meeting. That's all they need to hear. After the call, Ryan tried to focus on work, but his mind kept drifting to Thursday, to the questions he'd be asked, to all the ways he could fail spectacularly in front of people who actually knew what they were doing. That evening, while helping Mia with her math homework, his phone buzzed with a text from a number he didn't recognize. This is William Peterson. We should talk. I have information about Vanessa Reed's partnership that you should know before you commit further. Call me. Ryan stared at the message, feeling the weight of manipulation in every word. This was the test, he realized, the moment where doubt could take root if he let it. He could call Peterson, listen to whatever poison the man wanted to drip in his ear, second-guess every choice he'd made. Or he could trust the things he'd seen with his own eyes. Vanessa's determination to save her employees, her reconciliation with her daughter, her willingness to invest in a mechanic's garage, not because it made business sense, but because it was the right thing to do. Ryan deleted the message without responding. Daddy? Mia was watching him. Are you okay? Yeah, sweetheart. Just remembering something my dad used to say. What did he say? He said that when people try to make you doubt the good things in your life, it's usually because they can't have good things themselves, so they want you to be miserable like them. Mia considered this with her 7-year-old wisdom. That's sad for them. It is, but it doesn't have to be sad for us. Ryan pulled her close. Come on, let's finish these fractions. You're getting really good at them. Tuesday brought the Martinez family to pick up their minivan, and Mrs. Martinez cried when she saw the bill, half what any other shop would have charged. You're too kind, Mr. Cole. Too kind. How can we repay you? Just keep bringing me tamales at Christmas, Ryan said. Those are worth more than any payment. Mr. Martinez shook his hand firmly. My cousin, he owns a construction company. He said if you ever need renovation work, he'll give you the family rate. I told him about you, how you help people. He wants to help you back. Ryan thought about the garage expansion, about the renovations that Vanessa's investment would fund. I might take him up on that, thank you. As they drove away, Ryan felt the weight of community, the invisible web of connections and debts, and mutual support that held neighborhoods together. This was what corporate boards didn't understand, what spreadsheets couldn't capture. The value of treating people fairly, of building relationships that lasted, of being the kind of business that made the community stronger instead of just extracting profit from it. Wednesday morning brought Marcus to the garage, carrying a folder thick with papers. Tomorrow's briefing materials, background on the other board members, financial reports you should review, parliamentary procedure basics, all the fun stuff. Ryan flipped through the folder, feeling overwhelmed. I don't understand half of this. You will. But more importantly, you don't need to. Your job isn't to be the financial expert or the tech guru. Your job is to be the person who asks, but how does this affect real people? Marcus sat on Ryan's workbench, looking around the garage. You know what's funny? I have an MBA from Wharton, graduated top of my class, learned everything about business except the things that actually matter. Then I watched you walk into that boardroom with grease on your jeans and change the entire conversation in 10 minutes. That's when I realized all my education taught me how to optimize systems, but it never taught me how to value humans. You value humans. I've seen you with Vanessa. You care about that company. I care about Vanessa. The company is just where she works. Marcus smiled. But you made me think about it differently.
Made me wonder if maybe the company could be more than just a place to work. If it could be a community, like this garage, where people look out for each other. After Marcus left, Ryan sat with the briefing materials and tried to absorb information that felt like it was written in a foreign language. Revenue streams and market positioning and fiduciary responsibilities, all important, he was sure, but so far removed from the reality of fixing Mrs. Chen's transmission that they might as well have been discussing life on Mars. His phone rang. Vanessa. Just checking in. How are you feeling about tomorrow? Like I'm about to make a huge mistake that will embarrass everyone who believed in me. Perfect. That's exactly how you should feel. Confidence without fear is just arrogance. Vanessa's voice was warm. Ryan, I want you to remember something tomorrow. When you're sitting in that boardroom and they're asking you questions about corporate governance and strategic planning, you don't have to pretend to be someone you're not. You don't have to use corporate language or act like you've been doing this for years. Just be Ryan Cole. Be the man who stopped to help a stranger. That's who we need on this board. And if I screw up, then you'll screw up authentically and we'll help you fix it. That's what partners do. She paused. Sophia told me what you said to her about being scared of failing at parenting. Thank you for that. She needed to hear that even adults, even her mom, are figuring things out as we go. We're all just making it up as we go along, aren't we? Pretty much, but at least now we're doing it together. That night, Ryan couldn't sleep. He lay in bed staring at the ceiling, running through imaginary scenarios of tomorrow's board meeting. In some versions, he froze completely, unable to speak. In others, he said something so stupid that everyone realized immediately he didn't belong there. In a few optimistic versions, he managed to be helpful, but even those felt like fantasies. At 2:00 a.m., he gave up on sleep and went down to the garage. Sometimes working with his hands was the only way to quiet his mind. He found an old carburetor that needed rebuilding, finicky work that required complete attention, and lost himself in the familiar rhythm of disassembly and cleaning. This he understood. This made sense. You took something broken and you fixed it piece by piece, following logic and experience and the sure knowledge that every part had its place, if only life worked the same way. Thursday arrived too quickly and too slowly, time moving at the strange pace of anxiety. Ryan dropped Mia at school early, kissing her forehead and promising to pick her up on time. She grabbed his hand before he could leave. Daddy, are you nervous about your important meeting? Very nervous, sweetheart. That's okay. Miss Patterson says being nervous means you care about doing well, and you always do well when you care. She hugged him tight. I'm proud of you, Daddy. Even if you're scared. Ryan held her for a long moment, drawing strength from her uncomplicated faith in him. I love you, Mia. More than anything. More than ice cream? Way more than ice cream. More than the biggest sundae in the world. She giggled. That's a lot. The drive to Reed Technologies felt both endless and instant. Ryan parked in the garage, his truck looking even more out of place among the luxury vehicles than it had before, and rode the elevator to the 47th floor with his heart hammering against his ribs. Marcus met him at reception, looking professional and encouraging. You ready? No, but I'm here anyway. That's the spirit. Come on, they're waiting. The boardroom was full, all 15 board members, plus Vanessa and several executives Ryan didn't recognize. David Foster stood when Ryan entered, smiling warmly. Everyone, this is Ryan Cole, the man I've been telling you about. Ryan, these are your potential colleagues. David gestured around the table, naming names that Ryan immediately forgot in his nervousness. Please, sit. We have a lot to discuss. Ryan sat in the chair David indicated, feeling every eye in the room assessing him. Helen, the sharp-featured woman from the original meeting, spoke first. Mr. Cole, David has made quite the case for you joining this board. He says you bring a perspective we're lacking. But I have to be honest, you have no business experience, no formal education in corporate governance, no background that traditionally qualifies someone for this role. Why should we take a risk on you? Ryan took a breath, remembering Vanessa's advice. Be yourself. You're right. I don't have any of those qualifications. I fix cars for a living. I barely graduated high school, and most days I'm worried about making rent. But I know what it's like to be one of the 3,000 employees whose jobs depend on this board's decisions. I know what it's like to work for someone who values profit over people. And I know what it's like to work for someone who gets the balance right. If you want someone who can analyze quarterly reports and understand market trends, you have plenty of those. But if you want someone who'll ask how your decisions affect the single mom working in your mailroom, or the janitor putting his kids through college, or the IT guy who's one medical emergency away from bankruptcy, Ryan met Helen's eyes. Then maybe I'm exactly who you need. Silence. Then Rebecca spoke up. Last month, we were considering a cost-cutting measure that would have eliminated our employee gym and cafeteria subsidies, would have saved us about $2 million annually. The debate was purely financial, pros and cons on paper. But now I'm wondering, Mr. Cole, what would you have said about that proposal? Ryan didn't have to think long. I'd have asked how many employees use those benefits. Whether they're parents who need the gym because they can't afford a separate membership. Whether they're people who depend on subsidized meals because they're stretching their paychecks. I'd have asked whether saving $2 million is worth telling 3,000 people that their well-being matters less than the bottom line. He paused. And then I'd have asked if there are other ways to save that money that don't involve taking things away from the people who can least afford to lose them. Another board member, an older man with gray hair, leaned forward. That's a noble sentiment, Mr. Cole. But business isn't about nobility. It's about making hard choices. I make hard choices every day, Ryan said quietly. Every time someone comes to my garage with a car they can't afford to fix, I choose between charging them what the work is worth and charging them what they can pay. Every time I stay late to finish a job instead of getting home to my daughter, I choose between my business and my family. Hard choices aren't unique to boardrooms. But the difference is, when I make a choice that hurts someone, I have to look them in the eye the next day. I can't hide behind quarterly reports or market pressures. I have to own it. He looked around the room. Maybe that's what this board needs. Someone who remembers that every decision affects real people with real lives. Someone who can't forget that because he lives that reality every single day. The questions continued for another hour about his vision for the company, his understanding of fiduciary duty, his ability to commit the time required. Ryan answered as honestly as he could, admitting when he didn't know something, asking questions when he needed clarification, refusing to pretend expertise he didn't possess. Finally, David stood. I think we've heard enough to make a decision. Ryan, if you could step outside for a few minutes while we discuss and vote? Ryan found himself in the hallway, pacing like an expectant father, while inside the boardroom his future was being decided by people he'd just met. Marcus appeared with water and an encouraging smile, but didn't offer false optimism. Whatever happens, Marcus said, you did great in there. You were authentic. That matters. 15 minutes felt like hours. Then the door opened and David beckoned him back inside. Ryan walked in on shaking legs, trying to read the room's expression and finding nothing but professional neutrality. David waited until Ryan was seated before speaking. The board has voted on your nomination. The result was... He paused, and Ryan felt his heart stop. 11 in favor, 4 opposed. Welcome to the board, Mr. Cole. The room erupted in applause, and Ryan sat frozen, unable to process what had just happened. He was a board member, him, a mechanic with a struggling garage and $37 in the bank. He was going to help make decisions that affected thousands of lives. The terror of that responsibility crashed over him like a wave. Vanessa appeared at his side, smiling. Congratulations, you earned this. I have no idea what I'm doing, Ryan whispered. None of us do. We're all just figuring it out as we go. She squeezed his shoulder. But now you get to figure it out with us. Welcome to the team. The rest of the meeting passed in a blur. Paperwork to sign, schedules to coordinate, a crash course in board procedures that went over Ryan's head. But through it all, he kept coming back to one thought. He'd done it. He'd taken the risk. He'd said yes to possibility. Now came the hard part, living up to it. Ryan picked up Mia from school that afternoon with 15 minutes to spare, and the look of surprise on her face when she saw him waiting early made his chest ache with guilt and determination in equal measure. She ran to him with her backpack bouncing, her smile bright enough to chase away the lingering anxiety from the board meeting. You're early again. That's twice in 1 week.
Getting to be a habit, Ryan said, lifting her up despite her protests that she was too old for that. How was your day? Good. I got 100 on my math quiz. Miss Patterson said I'm improving. Mia's pride was palpable. Did you have your important meeting, the one that made you nervous? I did. It went well. Does that mean you got the job? Ryan set her down, kneeling to her level. Yeah, sweetheart, I got the job. I'm going to be helping Ms. Reed and her company make good decisions. But that doesn't change anything between us. I'm still going to be here for you. Still going to help with homework and make pancakes and be your dad first. Always first. Mia threw her arms around his neck. I know, Daddy. You promised. And you keep your promises now. The weight of those words, you keep your promises now, settled over Ryan like both a benediction and a challenge. He was being given credit for 2 successful weeks, as if that erased 3 years of broken commitments. But maybe that was how trust rebuilt itself. One kept promise at a time until the pattern shifted from disappointment to reliability. They celebrated with burgers and milkshakes at Morrison's Diner, the same place his father used to take him after Little League games. Mia chattered about school and friends and a boy named Tommy who pulled her hair but she thought maybe liked her. And Ryan listened with the full attention of someone who'd learned that these moments were the ones that actually mattered. His phone buzzed with a text from Vanessa. First official board meeting is 2 weeks from today. Between now and then, I'd like you to shadow me for a few days. See how the company actually operates. Meet the people your decisions will affect. Are you available? Ryan looked at Mia, at her innocent joy in this simple dinner, and felt the old familiar pull between responsibility and presence. But this was different, he told himself. This wasn't choosing work over family. This was building something that would give Mia security, opportunity, a future where she didn't have to worry about rent or broken coffee makers or whether they could afford new school clothes. He texted back, I can do mornings, need to be available for school pickup and evenings. Will that work? The response came immediately. Perfect. That's exactly the kind of boundary setting we need more of. See you Monday at 8 a.m. That night, after Mia was asleep, Ryan sat at his kitchen table with a notebook and tried to wrap his mind around what his life had become. 3 weeks ago, his biggest concerns were fixing transmissions and making rent. Now he was a board member of a tech company and a partner in a business expansion that would transform his garage into something he barely recognized. The fear of losing himself in all this change sat heavy in his chest. What if James Peterson had been right? What if he was just Vanessa's project, her proof that regular people could succeed in her world, destined to fail spectacularly when reality reasserted itself? Ryan's phone rang. David Foster. I hope I'm not calling too late. I wanted to check in, see how you're processing everything. Honestly, I'm terrified I'm going to let everyone down. Good. David's voice was warm with approval. The ones who aren't scared are usually the ones who fail. Fear means you understand the stakes. Now let me tell you something about being on a board. Your job isn't to have all the answers. It's to ask the right questions. To be the voice that says, wait, have we thought about this? To slow down the rush to decision-making long enough to consider consequences. That's it? Just ask questions? That's everything. Most disasters in business happen because everyone in the room is thinking the same way. You bring a different way of thinking. Use it. David paused. And Ryan, don't lose sight of who you are in the process. The moment you start trying to sound like everyone else in that boardroom is the moment you stop being valuable. Over the weekend, Ryan threw himself into work at the garage with renewed focus. He had the Martinez cousin, Luis, come by to assess renovation possibilities, and the burly contractor walked the space with a professional eye that saw potential where Ryan only saw limitations. You could expand into the lot next door, Luis suggested. It's been empty for 2 years. Owner might sell cheap. Add another 3 bays, a real customer waiting area, maybe a small office upstairs for your paperwork. He scribbled numbers on a pad. With your partner's investment and my family rate, you could have a first-class operation here. Keep the soul of the place, but give it room to grow. Ryan imagined it. A bigger space that could serve more customers, hire more people, become a real community hub instead of just a struggling one-man show. But he also imagined losing the intimacy that made Kohl's Auto Repair what it was. The personal connection with every customer, the ability to know everyone's story.
Can we do it without losing what makes this place special? Ryan asked. Luis smiled. That's up to you, amigo. The building doesn't make a place special. The people do. You hire good people who share your values, you train them right, you treat them fair. That's what keeps the soul alive. He clapped Ryan on the shoulder. Think about it. Talk to your partner. But don't wait too long. Good opportunities don't stay available forever. Monday morning arrived with crisp autumn air that smelled like change. Ryan dropped Mia at school and drove to Reed Technologies, his stomach churning with anticipation. Vanessa met him in the lobby, looking professional in a sharp suit but moving more easily now, the surgery fully healed. Ready for the grand tour? As ready as I'll ever be? She led him through the building floor by floor, introducing him to employees whose names he'd never remember but whose faces he tried to memorize. There was Jennifer in HR who had 3 kids and a husband with MS. Marcus in IT who was saving for his mother's hip replacement. Sarah in accounting who was a single mom putting herself through night school. Every person had a story, a life beyond their job title, reasons why this company's survival mattered. This is why you fought so hard, Ryan said as they rode the elevator back to Vanessa's office. These people aren't just employees to you, they're real. They were real to me from the beginning. I just forgot for a while. Got so caught up in growth and market share that I lost sight of why any of it mattered. Vanessa settled into her chair with visible relief, still recovering, still pushing harder than doctors recommended. But you reminded me. That first day when you told the board that price and value weren't the same thing, something clicked. I remembered why I started this company. Not to get rich, not to prove something, to help people. And you are helping people. 3,000 of them. For now. But tech moves fast, Ryan. Today's success is tomorrow's bankruptcy if you're not careful. That's why I need people around me who'll help me stay focused on what matters. Who'll ask the hard questions when I'm chasing the shiny new thing. She pulled out a folder. Which brings me to your first assignment as a board member. Ryan opened it to find financial projections and strategic plans that might as well have been written in hieroglyphics. I don't understand most of this. You're not supposed to, not yet. But I want you to read through it, and wherever you see something that makes you think, how does this affect regular people? Mark it. Write your questions in the margins. Don't worry about sounding stupid or naive. That's literally what we need from you. Over the next several days, Ryan split his time between the garage and Reed Technologies, living in 2 worlds that couldn't have been more different. Mornings were spent shadowing various departments, learning how the company operated from the inside. Afternoons were spent under cars, his hands black with grease, his mind trying to process everything he was learning. The disconnect was jarring. At Reed Technologies, people talked about disrupting industries and scaling solutions and achieving optimal outcomes. At the garage, Mrs. Chen worried about whether her transmission would last another year. The Martinez family counted pennies to afford new tires. The young kid with the pickup truck came back because his job interview went well and he needed an oil change he absolutely couldn't afford. Ryan did it for free, like always, and when the kid tried to argue, Ryan just said, "Pay it forward someday. When you're successful and someone needs help, remember this moment." His phone rang as the kid drove away. It was Rebecca from the board. "Ryan, I need your advice on something. We're looking at cutting our internship program to save money. It's purely financial. Interns are expensive when you factor in training and supervision. But I keep thinking about what you said, about asking how decisions affect real people. So I'm asking you, what would you want to know about this decision?" Ryan leaned against his workbench, thinking. "I'd want to know who these interns are. Are they kids from privileged backgrounds who will be fine either way? Or are they first-generation college students who need this opportunity to break into the industry? I'd want to know what happens to them if the program disappears. Do they have other options, or is this their only shot?" Most of them are from underprivileged backgrounds. We specifically recruit from community colleges and state schools. For a lot of them, this is their entry point into tech careers. Then I'd ask if there are other ways to save that money. Ways that don't involve closing a door that might be the only one some kids can walk through. Rebecca was quiet for a moment. "That's what I thought you'd say. Thank you. I'm going to push back on this proposal. We'll find the savings somewhere else." After she hung up, Ryan stood in his garage and felt the weight of responsibility settle more firmly on his shoulders. He'd just influenced a decision that would affect dozens of young people he'd never meet.
That kind of power was terrifying and humbling in equal measure. The weeks blurred together in a strange new rhythm. Ryan's mornings belonged to Reed Technologies, board meetings and strategy sessions and endless learning curves. His afternoons belonged to the garage, where he was finalizing plans with Luis for the expansion. His evenings belonged to Mia, sacred time that he guarded fiercely despite the growing demands on his attention. The garage renovation began on a Monday in late October. Luis and his crew arrived at dawn, and Ryan stood watching them mark out new walls and expanded bays with a mix of excitement and grief. This building had been his father's, his grandfather's. Changing it felt like erasing their memory even as it honored their legacy.
"You okay, boss?" Luis asked, noticing Ryan's expression. "Just thinking about my dad, wondering what he'd say about all this. He'd probably say the same thing my father told me when I took over his construction business. Don't preserve it like a museum. Make it better. That's how you honor the people who came before, by building on what they started." Luis squeezed Ryan's shoulder. "Your father taught you to help people. Now you're just helping more of them. That's not betraying his memory. That's fulfilling it." Ryan worked alongside the construction crew whenever he could, his hands remembering the satisfaction of physical labor even as his mind grappled with corporate complexities. There was something grounding about hammering nails and lifting beams, something real that balanced out the abstract nature of board meetings and strategic planning. Mia loved the construction chaos. She'd come by after school and wear a tiny hard hat Luis had bought her, watching the progress with 7-year-old wonder. "It's getting so big, Daddy. Are we going to have lots of people working here?" "Maybe someday. Would you like that?" "Only if they're nice like you, if they help people even when it's hard." Ryan made that his hiring criteria when the time came. He interviewed mechanics from all over the city, looking for technical skill but prioritizing character. He hired Tommy Chen, Mrs. Chen's nephew, who just graduated from vocational school and needed his first real job. He hired Maria Santos, a single mother who'd been working at a chain shop that treated her like a replaceable part. He hired David Washington, an older mechanic who'd been laid off when his previous employer closed and was convinced his age made him unemployable. "Why are you hiring me?" David asked, suspicious of good fortune. "I'm 63. Most shops want young guys they can mold." I want someone who remembers when customer service meant something. Someone who knows that the job isn't about turning wrenches. It's about helping people get where they need to go." Ryan shook his hand. "Besides, my father was 67 when he died. Still the best mechanic I ever knew. Age isn't the problem. Forgetting why you do the work, that's the problem." By mid-November, Cole's Auto Repair had transformed. 3 new bays, a comfortable waiting area with actual magazines and decent coffee, a small office where Ryan could handle the business side of things without feeling like he was drowning in paperwork. But the soul remained. The photos of his father and grandfather on the wall, the commitment to fair pricing, the belief that every customer deserved respect regardless of their bank account. The grand reopening fell on a Saturday, and the neighborhood turned out in force. Mrs. Chen brought her whole extended family. The Martinez family made tamales for everyone. David Foster showed up in jeans and a work shirt, looking more relaxed than Ryan had ever seen him. Vanessa came with Sophia, both of them laughing at something on Sophia's phone. Their relationship visibly healed. Mia insisted on cutting the ribbon, and as Ryan watched his daughter's gap-toothed smile beneath a crisp November sky, he felt something shift inside him. This was real. This was happening. He'd taken a risk, and it was paying off in ways he never could have imagined. "Speech," someone called from the crowd, and suddenly everyone was looking at him expectantly. Ryan wasn't prepared for this, but he climbed onto the small platform Luis had built and looked out at the faces gathered, neighbors and customers and new employees and board members from 2 different worlds somehow occupying the same space. "I'm not good at speeches," he started, and several people laughed. "But I wanted to say thank you. 3 months ago, I was barely keeping this place running. I was choosing between fixing cars and feeding my daughter. I was breaking promises because I didn't have enough hours in the day or dollars in the bank, and I thought that was just how life was going to be, surviving instead of living, getting by instead of thriving." He found Vanessa in the crowd. Then someone collapsed outside my garage, and I made a choice to stop and help even though I had somewhere else to be. even though it wasn't convenient, even though it scared me. And that choice changed everything. Ryan looked at Mia, who was watching him with shining eyes. My father taught me that you can't save everyone, but that doesn't mean you stop trying to save the ones you can. He taught me that value and price aren't the same thing. He taught me that how you treat people when no one's watching is who you really are. His voice thickened. I hope I'm teaching my daughter the same things. That kindness matters, that keeping promises matters, that stopping to help when someone needs it isn't weakness or foolishness. It's the whole point. The crowd was silent, and Ryan realized he was crying, tears streaming down his face in front of everyone. So thank you. Thank you for believing in this place. Thank you for believing in me. Thank you for showing me that sometimes the scariest choice is the right one. And thank you for reminding me that success isn't measured in money. It's measured in promises kept and lives changed when someone chooses to stop and help. The applause was thunderous, and Mia ran to hug him, her small body pressed against his legs. Vanessa was crying too, and David Foster and half the crowd. It was messy and emotional and perfect. Later, after the crowd had dispersed and the sun was setting, Ryan sat on the hood of his truck with Mia beside him, looking at the newly expanded garage that bore his family's name. Daddy, are you happy? Ryan thought about that question. 3 months ago, happiness had felt like an impossible luxury, something for people whose lives weren't balanced on a knife's edge. But now, watching his daughter swing her legs and smile at him with absolute trust, he realized happiness wasn't about having everything figured out. It was about being present for the moments that mattered. Yeah, sweetheart, I'm happy. Me too. I like our new garage, and I like that you're home more now, and I like that you keep your promises. She leaned against him. Can we get ice cream to celebrate? We absolutely can. They drove to Morrison's ice cream parlor, and Ryan let Mia order whatever she wanted. The most ridiculous sundae on the menu, complete with 3 types of toppings and a sparkler on top. He got his simple vanilla cone and watched her joy with the contentment of someone who'd finally figured out what mattered. His phone buzzed. A text from Vanessa. Beautiful speech today. You made me remember why I started this journey. Thank you for that. For everything. Ryan typed back, you gave me a chance when I didn't deserve one. Changed my life and my daughter's life. I'm the one who should be thanking you. Her response came quickly. We saved each other. That's how this works. See you at the board meeting Tuesday. We have big things to discuss. Tuesday's board meeting was Ryan's first as an official member rather than a guest, and he sat at the table feeling both more comfortable and more responsible than he had before. The agenda included the usual financial reports and strategic updates, but then Vanessa introduced something new. I want to propose a new company initiative, she said. Something Ryan's reopening speech made me think about. We're a successful company now, generating good profits. I think it's time we formalized our commitment to the community. I'm proposing we dedicate 5% of annual profits to employee hardship funds, community scholarships, and supporting local businesses that share our values. One of the board members, a finance expert whose name Ryan could never remember, immediately objected. 5% is significant. That's money that could go to R&D or expansion or increase dividends for shareholders. Or, Ryan heard himself say, it could go to making sure we're the kind of company people are proud to work for, the kind that remembers where it came from and helps others rise too. He looked around the table. How many of you got where you are because someone took a chance on you, gave you an opportunity you didn't quite deserve yet? I'm sitting here because Vanessa did that for me. Maybe we should be in the business of doing that for others. Rebecca nodded. I like this proposal. It differentiates us from competitors and creates loyalty that's worth more than 5% of profits. The discussion continued for another 30 minutes, but ultimately the vote passed, 9 in favor, including all 4 members who'd initially opposed Ryan's board nomination. After the meeting, Helen approached him with something that might have been grudging respect. I voted against you joining this board, Mr. Cole. I thought you'd be out of your depth, that you'd slow us down with naive idealism. She extended her hand. I was wrong. You're exactly what we needed. Don't change. I'll do my best, Ryan said, shaking her hand and meaning it.
Over the following months, Ryan settled into a routine that felt sustainable rather than desperate. The garage thrived under the new structure. Tommy and Maria and David turned out to be excellent hires who shared Ryan's commitment to treating customers fairly. Ryan's mornings were dedicated to board work and strategic planning, his afternoons to the garage, his evenings sacred for Mia. The hardship fund Vanessa had proposed became real, helping employees facing medical emergencies and family crises. The scholarship program opened doors for kids from neighborhoods like Ryan's who'd never dreamed of careers in tech. And slowly, incrementally, Reed Technologies became known not just for its innovation, but for its values. Christmas came with snow and celebration. Ryan bought Mia gifts without having to choose between presents and rent, a luxury that still felt unreal. They spent Christmas Eve at Vanessa's house, where Sophia taught Mia how to make cookies while the adults talked about everything except work. "I'm proud of you," Vanessa said quietly, watching the girls laugh in the kitchen. "You've exceeded every expectation. The other board members tell me they can't imagine the company without your perspective now. I'm just asking questions. You're doing so much more than that. You're changing how we think about success." Last week, when we were debating whether to open a new office in a wealthy suburb or an underserved neighborhood, what tipped the debate? Your question about where we could make the most difference rather than the most money. We're opening in the underserved neighborhood. That's because of you. Ryan watched Mia through the doorway, her face bright with flour and joy. She's doing better in school, math especially. Her teacher says she's caught up to grade level now. I think it's because I'm actually there to help her with homework every night. Because I'm keeping my promises. That's the real success, isn't it? Not the board seat or the expanded garage, just being present for your daughter. Yeah, everything else is just details. New Year's Eve arrived with the promise of fresh beginnings. Ryan closed the garage early and took Mia to the neighborhood celebration, a modest affair with hot chocolate and sparklers and a countdown led by Mrs. Chen with enthusiastic but off-key exuberance. At midnight, Ryan lifted Mia onto his shoulders so she could see the fireworks someone was illegally setting off 3 blocks away. "Make a wish, sweetheart." Mia closed her eyes tight. When she opened them, she looked down at her father. "I wish that next year is as good as this year, that you keep being happy, that we keep being together." Ryan's throat closed with emotion. "That's a good wish. What did you wish for?" "The same thing, basically. That I keep being the dad you deserve, that I keep my promises, that we build a life worth living, not just one worth surviving." As the new year began, Ryan reflected on the impossible journey that had brought him here. 6 months ago, he'd been a struggling mechanic with broken dreams and a daughter who'd learned not to count on his promises. Today, he was a board member of a thriving company, owner of an expanding business, and most importantly, a father who showed up when it mattered. All because he'd stopped to help a stranger on a rainy morning when walking away would have been easier. The spring board meeting brought news that the partnership Vanessa had fought for was exceeding projections. The merged companies were stronger together, their shared mission attracting talent and customers who wanted to support businesses with values. Meddyne, Peterson's company, had since acquired 3 other firms and gutted all of them exactly as Vanessa had predicted, validating the board's decision to bet on partnership over quick profit. "We made the right choice," David Foster said, his retirement from the board now just weeks away. "Not the easy choice, not the immediately profitable choice, but the right one." That's Ryan's legacy here, teaching us to trust that sometimes right and profitable can be the same thing if you're patient enough to let it develop. On David's last day, the board threw him a retirement party, and Ryan gave a speech that was more heartfelt than polished. "You gave me a chance when I had no business being in this room. You saw something in me that I didn't see in myself. You taught me that asking questions is more valuable than having answers, and that doubt is just another word for humility. Thank you for believing in a mechanic with big ideas and no experience. I hope I've justified that faith." David hugged him, this older man who'd become a mentor and friend. "You've exceeded it, son. Your father would be proud. Hell, I'm proud, and I barely know you. Keep being the conscience of this company. They need you." As summer approached, Cole's Auto Repair celebrated its first full year under the new structure. The business was profitable, the employees were happy, and customers kept coming back not because they had to, but because they wanted to.
Ryan had hired 2 more mechanics and was training them personally, passing on his father's lessons about treating customers with dignity and cars with respect. One Thursday afternoon, a woman pulled up in a luxury sedan that was making expensive sounds. She got out looking frustrated and worried, and Ryan approached with a friendly smile. "What can I help you with?" "My car's making this terrible noise, and I have a huge presentation in 2 hours. I called 3 shops, and they all said they couldn't see me for days. I don't know what to do." Ryan thought about another rainy day 6 months ago when a different woman had needed help with worse problems than car trouble. He thought about the choice to stop and how that choice had changed everything. "Let me take a look. Maybe it's something quick, and if not, we'll figure out a solution." That's what we do here. As he diagnosed the problem, a loose belt, 20 minutes to fix, Ryan realized this was his life now. Helping people solve problems, one person at a time. Sometimes in a garage with greasy hands, sometimes in a boardroom with uncomfortable questions, but always with the same fundamental approach. See people as human, treat them with dignity, value relationships over transactions. The woman tried to pay him double his quoted price, overwhelmed with gratitude that someone had helped when she was desperate. Ryan politely declined. "Just pay it forward. When someone needs help and you're in a position to give it, remember this moment. That's payment enough." After she left, Ryan stood in his garage and looked around at everything he'd built, or rather, everything that had been built through him when he'd been brave enough to say yes to possibility. The success wasn't his alone. It was Vanessa's for taking a risk on a stranger, David's for nominating him despite his lack of qualifications, Marcus's for believing that sometimes the best expertise is lived experience, his employees for sharing his vision of business as service rather than pure profit. But mostly, it was his father's. Every lesson about stopping to help, every reminder that value and price weren't the same, every moment of teaching Ryan that how you treat people when no one's watching defines who you really are, all of it had led to this moment. Mia arrived after school, now 8 years old and growing too fast, her math skills solid and her confidence blooming. "Daddy, guess what? I got picked for the advanced reading group." Ryan scooped her up despite her protests that she was too big for that now. "That's amazing, sweetheart. We're celebrating. Ice cream? Can Sophia come? She texted that she's home from school this weekend." Ryan called Vanessa, who immediately agreed to bring Sophia. They met at Morrison's, this unlikely family formed through crisis and choice, and the decision to keep showing up for each other. Sophia was 17 now and talking about colleges, considering schools that specialized in social work because she'd seen how her mother's company had changed when it started prioritizing people over profit. "I want to do something that matters," Sophia explained over her sundae. "Something that helps people like Mr. Cole helped my mom, like she helped him back. I want to be part of that cycle." Vanessa's eyes glistened with proud tears. "When did you get so wise?" "I had good examples, Sophia smiled at Ryan. "You taught me that success isn't about money, it's about the lives you touch, the promises you keep, the people you help when you could walk away." Later, driving home with Mia asleep in the passenger seat, Ryan thought about the question he'd asked himself 6 months ago. What kind of man was he becoming? Was he losing himself in corporate politics and quarterly earnings reports? The answer, he realized, was no. He'd found himself. He discovered that the skills that made him a good mechanic, attention to detail, problem solving, treating people with respect, were the same skills that made him a good board member. That his father's lessons about helping people weren't just quaint small business philosophy, but fundamental truths about how any organization should operate. The garage and the boardroom weren't competing worlds. They were complementary ones. Both required seeing people as humans rather than resources. Both demanded integrity when no one was watching. Both needed someone willing to ask the hard questions and make the hard choices. As Ryan pulled into his parking spot behind the garage, his legacy, his father's dream expanded but not betrayed, he felt a sense of peace that had eluded him for 3 years. Since Sarah died, he'd been surviving, just barely keeping his head above water. But now he was living, building, growing, becoming the father Mia deserved and the man his father had raised him to be. His phone buzzed with a text from David Foster. "Saw the quarterly reports. The company is thriving. Your influence is everywhere in their decisions now. Your father would be proud. I certainly am. Ryan climbed the stairs to his apartment, where tomorrow he'd make pancakes for Mia and help her with her weekend homework, where he'd review board materials for next week's meeting and plan the garage's schedule, where he'd live the beautiful, complicated, impossible life that had started with one simple choice on a rainy morning. The choice to stop when someone needed help. The choice to say yes when opportunity knocked unexpectedly. The choice to believe that sometimes the scariest path was the right one. As Ryan checked on Mia one last time, her face peaceful in sleep, her dark curls spread across the pillow just like Sarah's used to be, he whispered a promise into the darkness. I'm going to keep showing up, keep trying, keep being present for the moments that matter. That's what success really means. Not money or power or prestige, just being there. Just keeping promises, just stopping to help when someone needs it. Somewhere, he imagined his father smiling. Imagined Sarah proud of the man he was becoming. Imagined all the people whose lives had been touched by that one choice to stop. 3,000 employees with secure jobs, Vanessa and Sophia's relationship healed, his own daughter learning that promises could be kept and dreams could be real. And Ryan Cole, the single dad mechanic who'd taken a millionaire to the hospital and changed both their lives, finally understood what his father had tried to teach him all those years ago. You can't save everyone, but that doesn't mean you stop trying to save the ones you can, because sometimes, in the process of saving someone else, you save yourself too. And sometimes, just sometimes, one moment of choosing kindness over convenience, courage over fear, people over profit, sometimes that one moment changes everything. Ryan turned off the light and settled into bed, ready for whatever tomorrow brought, ready to keep his promises, ready to stop whenever someone needed help, ready to live instead of just survive, ready for all the moments that would matter. Because he finally understood. This was what it meant to have a life worth living. Not perfect, not easy, but real, present, true. And that, Ryan thought, as sleep claimed him, was worth more than all the money in the world.